Welcome to Chatting with Nuts, episode 104, which is our maybe biggest episode of the year every year, which is the Nuttys, the award show where I go through and hand out very prestigious literary awards to all kinds of books that I've read. It's been a pretty great year. I'm actually going to have, for the first time ever, I'm going to do just 2 breakdowns because I was myself curious about my reading. So we're going to look at some statistics. Don't worry, I'm not going to be one of these people who's like, I read this many books and this many pages a day. I think it's a little more interesting than that. Maybe not. Maybe just to me. However, I also kind of want to recap a little bit of the year at the end, because I think I've noticed some trends in my own reading, why I'm reading things the way, or what I'm choosing to read and why, which is kind of interesting. And maybe it'll be illuminating for you if you watch this channel regularly, or maybe not. I'm not sure. But the Nuttys have always been fun. This is the 6th year doing this. It used to be until 2023. That was the first year I actually split my top 10 in my award show in half, and I dubbed this half the Nuttys. But we've been doing the awards for 6 years now. And I even had someone comment and say, maybe it's time to tier rank your years of reading. And I will say maybe, possibly, that's a good idea. But I think that you have to do it on a good increment. Like year 6 isn't the time to do it. Scott, do not feel bad for being one of those people to give the stats previously. I just don't do it personally because I'm almost afraid to see it. And by the way, Scott, fantastic to see you. I hope you and your family are well and you're having a great holiday, my friend. I think about you a lot. So also, for those who are wondering, this is a live show. You're probably here just to find out what the books are, to see if you agree or disagree, or you want to add something to your TBR, which I think is the function of not just this channel, but books online in general. We're just trying to curate our reads and take things off the TBR, put them on, whatever it might be. So if you're more just interested in that, there are going to be timestamps once we go off live, and you'll be able to jump around the video to the awards parts, and you can cut through all the chatter that I'm going to have with chat, because this is an interactive show. It's not just me. It's everyone here in this really solid community that I've built that watch, and new people that are coming in still, which is really nice. One thing I would love to encourage people to do in the live chat tonight, but also in the comments below afterwards, I would love for you guys to fill out these award categories with your picks. I find it interesting to read through. I'll be honest, a lot of the reads that I end up being surprised by, I don't know if I want to use the word surprise, but out of left field, that's the same thing as surprise. What am I doing? Come from comments or the live chat. I can't tell you how much that has influenced me in my reading, and most of the time, they're pretty solid. So by going through your awards, when you put them in chat or in the comments afterwards, it's going to give me an opportunity to jot some down and start building a TBR for 2026, because 2026 is going to be the year of 0 commitments in any fashion with this channel because I'm busy. I got a lot of stuff going on and I don't want to let anybody down. I also don't want to bring anything less than 100% to whatever I do here. So very excited for this. This is going to be great. We got a couple new categories this year. We are not going to have the biggest disappointment. I know people really enjoy that, but honestly, I feel like there's enough negativity in the online spaces. And you know, if you do that, that's fine. I'm not calling you a negative person. I just personally, like when I went down to do that section, I was like, no, this isn't the energy I'm trying to bring. I'm trying to have a wonderful Friday night and talk about things that I really enjoyed. I guess to kind of give a statement about this year, I think I said on the last Chatting with Nuts or one of the other ones that were recent that I said this year feels like the most mid of all time minus a couple books. I was looking through it. I don't think that's actually true. I think it was the most inconsistent year. And I do think the last quarter was pretty rough overall. Just had a couple things in a row that really weren't great. Kind of put me in a little bit of a reading slump even. But when I look back at the beginning of the year, the variety is crazy good. There were some major hits in there. Some things I actually forgot that I had read this year. And I kind of liked this year. I don't know if it would be ranked as my best year of reading since I joined BookTube, but it could be. I'd have to really think. And, tier ranking or ranking my reading years might be something that I do in the near future, because I actually do think that would be a lot of fun. But it would also not be from a quality standpoint, probably also just how much fun I was having at the time. I feel like I am having as much fun reading as I ever have in the 6 years of doing this, though it's a different type of fun in many ways. So I'm going to go in the chat. This is going to be a long one, guys. It just is what it is. I just want to have some fun and relax and kind of wrap up this year for this community. So I'm going to go through and say hello. Again, if you don't want to hear all this, you can jump to the timestamps if you're watching after the fact. If you're here live, you're going to have to deal with it. Sarah Beth is here. We have a lot of the usual suspects. The best award show on YouTube. I'll tell you what, folks, I love doing this, but I'd be a liar to say I think I have the best show. I think the best show is the Tubies over on StoryTube's channel with Carlos and Yolanda. They put in so much work and they make commercials. Last year they premiered, I think it was like an hour and a half, and they have guest presenters to the awards. If you folks have not watched the Tubies, you're in for a treat. It's coming out, I believe, this weekend. I hope I didn't miss any change of schedule, but I really implore you to go check out StoryTube, which is Story Toob, not Tube. Carlos, they've been on the podcast many times, or the channel multiple times, so you can catch it through there. If this isn't the best one, then theirs certainly is, in my opinion. Let's get Knucking Futs. I feel like that is just a recipe for me swearing, and I don't want to swear, do I? Paloma says, hope everyone had a great holiday season, and for those who don't celebrate anything during this month, well, I hope your December has been good, and I will ditto that for all of you. Okay. I need to buy some real food. I'll be back. Pausing Shadow the Torturer for this. Let's get this show on the road. Kev, I promise you Shadow the Torturer is probably better than this. Okay. I'm just saying. I see Boy's Life in the Deluge in the thumbnail. Happy Kev. We'll see if you're still happy with me at the end. Can't stay the whole time, but I love the Nuttys. Well, thank you. I love everyone for showing up. We got Matt here. We got Samwise. I mean, we have quite a few people. Oh, okay. Yeah, we got more people than I thought. Is there an award for a book that started out good but then didn't finish at the end? There should have been. That's a great category, Matt. And maybe if I have time at the end, I'll run through, very ad hoc and just kind of try to find which one that would be. Mrs. Nuts is in the chat, and big shout out to Mrs. Nuts. She helped me pull this thing together, as she always does. We were getting up against the deadline a little bit just because we had a lot of stuff going on. It's been a bit of an exhausting month, but not a bad month by any means. What percentage of Jimmy's reading has been grandma books? That is not a statistic, unfortunately, that I have. Did Kelsey pick that shirt? This is like a Tony Soprano shirt. I actually do think she picked it. Happy to be here, Jimmy. Who guy that? I'm happy you're here. This promises to be more insightful than StoryTube's stats video. Maybe I came off harsh. I'm not hitting on stats. For me personally, I can't do it. It kind of takes away the joy of reading for me in some ways. In a shocking development, Wolf Hall. Scott, it's awesome, man. Happy holidays. Oh my goodness, Ben and my good friend Amanda tuning in from a hotel room. They braved the floods on the West Coast to go get an HDMI cable and let me know that they're watching from a hotel. Kind of insane, but the dedication is much appreciated, of course. And how about that gumbo? My God. Simon Dinosaur, thank you so much for the super chats. Very kind of you, the 5 spot. Year of 0 commitments. What a New Year's resolution. My New Year's resolution is to be less available. And I know that sounds harsh, but no, just for myself. I think that's probably a good idea. Maternal Pillow said my 2025 was an odd one for reading. While overseas, I found I was unable to focus on anything new, so old favorites became a go-to, aka Game of Thrones and the old Star Wars novels. I love that for you. I think that's awesome. I can't wait to see who wins the Best Book Called Red Rabbit Award. When I was thinking back on this year, I'm like, I think I've said Red Rabbit more than any other book this year on streams. Evie says, I can't remember. Are we doing a Patreon wheel at the end of the ceremony? I was going to, but I'm not. I was going to just skip a wrap up for December and take a little break and then come back in January and wrap up December and January in one. But I've actually decided to go against my better notions, and I will be wrapping up the month of December next Friday. It's going to be a decently short wrap up. I didn't get a ton of reading done. And for those who are like, well, what if you read a book in the last 2 weeks of December that changed your mind? I'm not. I'm not. I know I'm not. So these awards are fine. They're not missing any candidates at all. And I will be releasing a top 10 books of the year. I'll do that in the first week of January. It's maybe like the week of January 5th, probably. But next Friday, we will be doing the December wrap up, and we'll do the Patreon pick that time, Evie. So thank you for asking. I would have forgot to bring that up. You're looking good today, James. Well, thank you, Derry. Happy holidays, Amanda, and thank you very, very much. I appreciate the omission of most disappointing. I'm trying to curate my YouTube and social media experience to skew towards positive. Yeah, for me, I'm just a bit burned out by being bummed out, I think. Fingers crossed for Best Buddy Read. I didn't do award. Brian, you would win that, I promise. I hope everyone had a good Christmas. Yeah, any holiday you celebrate, I hope that you had a wonderful time. So... gonna just go ahead and kind of skip over here, just click on some random ones because I think it's about time that we do the damn thing and get started with our very first award of the evening. And if I remember correctly, we did this last year, but I could be misremembering. I guess we'll find. Oh, no. Let's not do an award. I lied to you. You've been tricked. We are actually going to do stats. And I just thought this was kind of interesting. The unfortunate thing is that I can't really read this because I have this on a teleprompter. So what I'm going to do is look at my notes as I go through this. But I wanted to look at my reading split because this channel used to be predominantly adult fantasy. Didn't even read a lot of sci-fi. But as I've grown, I've read a lot of other things. And I've even had accusations that I don't like fantasy anymore, or I don't read a lot of fantasy. So I was curious. I said, let's get down to the facts. And it turns out that 38% of my reading, which is the biggest number here, is still fantasy. I thought this was kind of wild. I actually have a tie for second place, which is sci-fi and general fiction, 24% apiece. So we got 38% fantasy, 24% sci-fi, 24% contemporary fiction, we'll call it. And then I have 14% towards horror, which is probably the biggest shock because I didn't make a conscious effort to read more horror this year. It just kind of happened. And I'm not a horror aficionado. Horror movies, I am. But when it comes to novels, not so much. And I didn't read a boatload of them. I think I read 7 or 8 horror books this year. So that sample size is pretty low. So keep that in mind as we talk tonight about horror and that split for sure. You might be wondering how I broke these down into genres. If you've been watching the channel for any period of time, you know I'm not a big fan of discussing the parameters of genre. I find it to be a pretty boring conversation, but I just did these as best as I could and with my own opinion. So you might even see one slide tonight that I think there might be actually on every slide, there might be arguments about the genres. Just know I picked them. It's not like for a specific reason. You're probably right if you disagree, but it's just how I see the book and how I categorize it in my mind. The one thing I don't want to get hung up on ever on this channel is like, well, what genre is that? We have to claim it. It's very lighthearted. Now, here's the thing I was curious about. Series versus standalone, and I was shocked to find out it is a literal 50-50 split. 50% of the books I read were part of a series, and that does include things that are not connected, like Discworld. Like I read Guards and Small Gods. They're both part of Discworld, so in my opinion, that's a series, even if they're sub-series of a bigger series. So that also includes things like The Hunter by Tana French, which is book 2 in a series. Well, I guess that actually connects to book 1. Never mind. Any series that is labeled as a series gets counted as a series, is my point. So 50% of the books I read were standalones, 50% were series, and this is really something that excited me. I think this is the least amount of book ones I've ever read in a year, which has been kind of the meme on the channel for a bit. There is actually an award that you will see in just a little bit that's kind of aimed at that, just to have a little bit of fun. But I love this. Standalone books are awesome. It seems like people are always wondering where they are. They're out there. You just have to search a little bit. And there's definitely some ones out there that I think are absolutely worth your time, and certainly going to be some here to talk about tonight as we go on. So let's get into our first award of the Nuttys. I'm nervous a little bit, honestly. New author of the year. And I didn't want to put author portraits up because I don't know. I just thought it was kind of weird. So what I did is I picked the authors that would have, were exposed to me through this book, basically. So the first book I read by them. The big parameter I had to set for these, this category, which I had parameters to set for all of them because the lists were so long. Like the candidates that could be included were so long. I had to start like setting parameters for them. And that's when I realized that this reading year was actually pretty solid. So the big thing is that these are authors that I'm guaranteed to read more from. And that's why you might be seeing some people missing from this. If there had been a standout where they only wrote one book, they could still make the list, but this is what I ended up on. So Percival Everett, James, I also read Erasure this year, so I immediately followed up after reading James. I wanted to read more. Percival Everett was completely unknown to me, probably until about 2 years ago, or maybe, yeah, it was probably 2 years ago where Brian from Bookish had told me about Percival Everett, and he put out a video. He's like, what's going on with Percival Everett? I started to dive into it, and I guess it was probably around the same time that everybody else did, because he finally got his Pulitzer, and rightfully so, in my opinion. I thought James was a fabulous book. I thought Erasure was awesome. I think the movie's just as good, if not in some ways even a little bit better. But Percival Everett is kind of the quintessential author for me. He has a bit of a pessimistic side that is very humorous, but also he keeps it very brief and short, and he packs an emotional punch. He's just one of those authors that has really done something that I can connect with. And then we have What We Can Know by Ian McEwan. And this is probably an author that's most famous for Atonement, though he has many other books that I think sound very interesting. One is like Machines Like Us or something like that. It's about alternate history. This novel here was labeled as a sci-fi novel. I read it. I don't think it's sci-fi personally. I think it's a lot of things. It's kind of a mishmash of things, but I was very impressed with on a writing level, how good it was, but also very entertained, which is the best combo you can really have. And this author is someone who's, in the last month has skyrocketed up the TBR. Power of the Dog by Don Winslow. Don Winslow is just an absolute titan in the crime and thriller genres. It's hard to put into words just how addicting I thought Power of the Dog was. And Don Winslow has an ability to know when to cut things off. And I don't mean ending chapters. I mean, he's like, yeah, we got, tickets to the boxing match. And then he summarizes the boxing event and gets to the next scene that we would really like to see. We don't want to have some fight scene described to us that have two boxers we don't care about. I think he knows what scenes to show. And that is a talent among authors that I value so much, and I think a lot of people lack. So Don Winslow, for being able to pick his parts and then just write very compelling crime fiction. I might read everything Don Winslow's ever written, to be honest with you. And then we have The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison's a legend. If I had to describe this to you of like why she is on the list, I think it would be obvious in the fact that I don't really upload normal videos anymore on this channel, and I made a video about The Bluest Eyes. It affected me so much, and I had so much to talk about. I couldn't get out of my head, and I almost felt like tortured by the book until I just spoke it out loud, and I made a video. I had made a video in like 2 years. I think it was like a year. So Toni Morrison, obviously, Song of Solomon, Beloved. Those are two books that I own that I really want to read. And I think it's very obvious that she's going to be an author. Even if I don't love the stories or the books or whatever, that I'll have an immense amount of respect for as I work through the rest of her catalog. But there can only be one winner here. And the new author of the year goes to Percival Everett, specifically because I read James, but also Erasure. I mean, like I said, this is an author that does what I want, is not pulling punches when it comes to a bit of the grimness of real life and history, but is also someone who is very brief and effective and economical. What else can I really say? That's kind of what I've been looking for. I think it was very much a case of the right author at the right time. And I think every single book in his catalog is something I want to read, maybe even more than... I'll be honest with you, it was really coming down to Percival Everett and Don Winslow. That's who it was coming down between, just based on like interest in the other works that they have and like the premise. Whew, man, it'd be hard pressed to figure out an author maybe other than Ishiguro that I want to read more from. I think it's just a pleasure to read Percival Everett, and he also gets every bit of emotion out of me, whether it's anger, joy, humor, sadness, everything. So Percival Everett, I mean, I feel like this is no surprise for probably a lot of people for how much I ranted about how much I love this book. So, by the way, this was an author, or I should say a book. I was going to start with Erasure, and I ended up going with James because I just kept seeing the posters in Barnes & Noble for their book of the year. And it's one of the times where I'm really glad that like marketing worked on me, because I think reading James first was the exact right move for me as a reader. Also, my name happens to be James, so there was literally no way. There was no way I couldn't pick this. So let's jump in the chat, see people's reactions, but also I would love to see what other people might have that. So you're probably right if you disagree. I'm going to start using that line preemptively, get people to shut up. It's not even to shut up. It's just, I really like to show humility, because I don't think I have any authority on anything, really. Percival, 100% is my guess. Wow, Sophie's choice right here. This is Donnie's all day. Don Winslow is my guess. Bluest Eyes rocked me. I have Beloved lined up for next year. Everett and Morris is my guess. Wow, those are some Titan authors. I would agree with that. I saw someone say something about McEwen. Yeah, Ian McEwen makes the short list. I love McEwen. Yeah, if I'm saying the name wrong, by the way, I'm sorry. Yeah, dude, I was really shocked by this and taken back, because I picked that book up on its premise alone, and I think it very much oversells its premise on the back cover. In fact, I would encourage you probably not to read the back cover. It's nothing like it describes, in my opinion, but it ends up being something really special. It's a really great book, in my opinion. I'm guessing Everett or Winslow. Books of Genghis Khan said Josiah Bancroft for me. That's an author I would like to give a second chance at some point. It's got to be Percival or Morrison. I'm leaning Morrison. I imagine, by the way, happy holidays. But I imagine you were probably thinking, because I made the video, if I had to guess, Tad Williams is your close second. I love that. It's awesome. Oh, wait, Richard Swan has a sci-fi coming out? I would read that. I actually want to read Grave Empire. Just haven't been in the mood yet. I have to read some Don Winslow. Mark, yes, you do, dude. You do. I'm loving Power of the Dog. Mrs. Nuts. I don't know if you're supposed to love Power of the Dog. You're supposed to read it. There's a lot of horrifying things. Who am I sleeping next to at night? Tim Powers would be the winner for me. DJ Butler might be second place. I tried DJ Butler. Couldn't get into him, but Tim Powers I did enjoy. New author for me is Allie Hazelwood, just from quantity. I swear every time I walk into the bookstore, Evie, Allie Hazelwood has a new end cap. Every single time. Mervyn Peake. These are great authors. This is great. I think What We Can Know is considered as climate fiction. Yeah, and I would have probably put it into the sci-fi category if it had done more with it. It really felt like a dressing piece. Though I'm not so sure about that. I'll talk about that book in my December wrap-up next week. I got a lot of thoughts about that book. I actually have some things I don't like about it, but it is probably going to make the top 10 books of the year this year. Yes, read The Force by Winslow last year in a buddy read. Absolutely brilliant. You'll love it. This is what Carlos from StoryTube has recommended to me. Actually, no, Sir Terry Pratchett. Can't go wrong with that. Hobo Giant says, I would be debating between Claire Keegan, Gurm, China Mieville, probably. Dude, that is like my list. I love that, dude. Power of the Dog is a certified banger. You know what, Dan? You're a certified banger, and I mean that with love. K Fox said mine was either JCM Byrne, Barbara Kingsolver, or John Wyndham. I want to see the other categories before picking which one because they were all so good. Barbara Kingsolver is someone I'm going to be reading in the near future again, because how do I not after reading Demon Copperhead and loving it so much? Robin Hobb is on the list for some people. I think that that's pretty amazing. Nathan Ballingrove would be my author of the year. I've devoured everything he wrote this year. I mean, I've only gotten started with the novellas, but he was certainly someone that made an impact on me. Red James, based on you hyping it up, great book. Mike, I was terrified to read the end of that sentence. Did not want to steer you wrong. Karen Russell for me. The Antidote and Swamplandia were incredible reads. I love that. Tana French. This is a man after my own heart. Tana French is the jam. Actually, part of the Dublin Murder Squad. I found a book I didn't know I had from that series, like book like 8 or something. I want to read it tomorrow. I got to finish my reads that I'm doing now, but I want to read it so badly. Can't go wrong with this bunch, but for me, Don Winslow would get the award over Everett. And Bart, I would not, if anyone picked any of these 4 authors, or honestly, there was like 7 that didn't make the nominee list, I almost considered expanding it this year to 6 candidates because it was so tight between the ones that I had listed that were qualifying. And I stuck to my guns, though. I said, this is not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be stressful, and you're supposed to make some big choices and have an opinion if you're online, right? New author for me was Tad Williams. You might have heard of him. I have. He was actually at Thanksgiving at my house this year. That's not true. I made that up. Haruki Murakami is my new author of the year. Okay. I was actually saying last night how I need to finish 1Q84. Really, really loved it. TJ Newman is a new author I found this year. Larry McCurdy. I always say that wrong. McMurtry. Did I say it right that time? Best author for me was Ishiguro T. Baggins. You're extraordinarily based for that. Sarah J. Maas. Mrs. Nuts just started Throne of Glass. Catriona Ward for me for her incredibly unique voice. Leave it up to Ben to be one of the most well-read people I know. Mr. Bacon, which is R. Scott Baker for those who don't know. Dude knows how to write a character. I would agree with that. For Dia Lennon. Monica, I don't know who that is, but I want to know now. I would like to know. Kazuo Ishiguro is my author of the year. Guys, Vonnegut, I mean, this is incredible. Douglas Preston, The Lincoln Child. There are so many things being mentioned I've never heard of, and I love it. Can I just say this is so fun? This is the best time of the year. I know some people get fatigued, like, another award show, another top 10. I don't. This is what made me start a booktube channel. I love the year at awards. I remember getting a list. I mean, Mrs. Nuts can verify this, but whenever I was getting back in the reading, I had a couple books I wanted to read, and then it came around probably like Christmas time 2019, and I had a written out list of books, fantasy. It was mostly fantasy. I think it was 99% fantasy. And I had a handwritten list. I think it was like 36 books. And I remember walking up to the counter at Barnes & Noble and like the stack, like I had 2 stacks. Miss Nuts had 2 stacks. People are looking at me. I had an employee go, would you like me to help you with those? And I said, I got them. You see the pipes on me? I got them, bro. But that's the kind of excitement this time of year brings for me in reading. And now, because I'm so involved, it's whenever people say something like Douglas Preston, and I'm like, well, who in the blue hell is that? And now I get excited again, like a brand new reader. There's nothing better than that first year getting back into reading or being a reader for the first time, and everything brings like a sparkle to your eye. There is nothing like that in the world to me. And this time of the year always brings that out. So I just want to say this is really fun. This is like so much fun. It's amazing. I will move on here to the next award, and we shall see what it is, because I can't remember. Surprise of the year. I am genuinely surprised because I forgot which award was next. We have some wild books here. Some wild books. And I'm actually going to verify that this slide is right because, again, it was really tight competition, and I want to make sure I didn't mess something up. Wait, no, I didn't. Okay, I didn't. Thank goodness. Okay, we have a psychological supernatural horror Western called Red Rabbit by Alex Gratian. Maybe you've heard of it. I've talked about it on almost every stream this year. We have Crypt of the Moon Spider by Nathan Ballingrud. It is a horror novella / alternate history that is bizarre, and there's insane asylums, and they go to the moon, and it's in the 50s, and it is insane. Oh, there are also spiders, so beware. I ended up reading the sequel because I enjoyed the first one so much. And then we have probably one of the most underrated books that I don't talk about enough since reading it. And I know that Sir Jordan Drew is here tonight. And he's, I think, the first person to mention to me. I think this was a Patreon pick, but it was The Blue Book of Nebo by Manon Stefan Ross. And I probably butchered that name, and I apologize, but this is a post-apocalyptic novel in the Welsh countryside that is very quiet, and it is all about the connection between a mother and a child. And it is so subtle and so good. I would highly recommend, if you're interested in this, I did talk about it in the wrap-up, you could dig through, but you could also check out Sir Jordan Drew's video. I think it was either a video or a short, but regardless, I thought he did a wonderful job. Actually, to be honest, he does one of the best jobs in being concise with the way he describes things. I think he does a really nice job. He's a good orator. But The Blue Book of Nebo, easily one of the most underrated books, even though I think it's actually super popular, but to me, it's one of the most underrated. And then we have Lazarus by Leonid Andreyev. Listen, I tried my hardest not to put any nominees in here that I couldn't pronounce, and I failed miserably. I read far too many translated works this year. I'm kidding. I'm joking to the translated crowd. There can only be one, and the winner is Lazarus by the guy's name I cannot pronounce. This is such a shock, and I'm going to tell you why, but I also want to tell you, as a tagline for this author is that he is the Russian Edgar Allan Poe. I loved this short story. It is like, what is it, Evie? It's like 40 or 60 pages. This is such a surprise, and it had to win, and I'll tell you why it had to win. I didn't know this book existed. And I know I summarized all the other books. I forgot. I will summarize this. And I got to be really careful because it's only 40 to 60 pages long. You should just go check it out. It's actually free online if you want to check it out after I describe it. But I did not even know this author exists. I didn't know this book exists. Showed up on my doorstep as an Amazon gift package. Turns out it's from my friend She Was Only Evie. And I open it. And my first thought is, it better not be a KJ Parker novel. I was going to be furious if it's KJ Parker novel. Turns out it's not. It's some random translated work. It's like poorly printed. You can tell no one reads this author in America. It's like very shoddy print. And I'm like, okay, the cover's kind of cool, but you know, it's like made to order kind of print. And I'm like, okay, what in the world did Evie send me? And we ended up both reading it. And I have never been so happy to receive a gift as a shock and be so unsure about something. This short story is absolutely incredible. I loved it so very much. And to me, this was just a shocker because of not knowing about it. And then the premise of this entire story, and this is where I will describe what the story is about. It is about Lazarus after Jesus resurrects him from the dead and how his life goes after that. Like basically moments after he is resurrected and Jesus leaves, we don't really talk about Lazarus much. But if you think about it, Lazarus had to go through life as the guy who was resurrected. Bit of a common thing, I guess, at the time at this point. Right? At some point, it was, regardless, Lazarus had to live life after being resurrected. The implications of that and the way it's handled is one of the most interesting yet disturbing things that I have read. And it is written in a manner that does feel a little bit biblical. So if you're someone who's read the Bible, like I think that it has like that vibe to it and that feel, almost feels like something that could have been like left out of the Bible potentially. Maybe not to that degree, but very, very good. And if you're a big Rome fan, there's some Roman stuff in here. It doesn't cover very much too many pages, so I'm not going to say any more about this except for the fact that you can find it for free. And I thought that it was pretty much perfect. And this is coming from someone who, even though I'm not religious anymore, I still think about the Bible, and I even read some parts of it still. And I just think alternate Bible stories like this are so fascinating because usually we don't think too much after the text, I don't think. But you know, there are characters that show up and they're gone. Lazarus being one. So, oh my God, it is very good. And I think a lot of you, if you watch my channel and you vibe with me, you would probably enjoy, at least get something out of it potentially. And if you're a fan of like Russian literature, like I love Leo Tolstoy. I don't like Dostoevsky, unfortunately, but I am just learning more, and Chekhov, of course, but I'm learning more and more about Russian translated literature. And this, out of all of them, might be the most shocking. So surprise of the year easily goes to Lazarus. If it had not been Lazarus, it probably would have been the Blue Book of Nebo. But unfortunately, Lazarus just steamrolled everybody at the end of the year. And I really thought about recency bias. I really don't think it was recency bias. I really don't. Also, I got to tell you guys, I'm looking at the chat, and I love people guessing what it's going to be, and everyone having a lot of different answers. That makes me happy. Moon Spider was bet on. Red Rabbit or Moon Spider. Got the Blue Book of Nebo for Christmas. Can't wait to get to it. I'll be shocked, Nemos, if you don't love it. I'll be shocked. Moon Spider for the W, in my opinion. Evie is in the chat, who gifted me this book, and she absolutely loved it. So again, thank you, Evie, very, very much. I appreciate it. Samwise says, okay, fine, just bought Lazarus. Well, I hope you like it. I always feel bad trying to get people to buy. Well, I'm not trying to get anyone to buy anything, but when people buy like short stories after my recommendations, because I'm like, man, I know how outrageously priced things are. Like Ring Shout by P. Desley Clark is something I wanted to read for the longest time. I ended up caving and buying the hardback of a novella that's 100 pages, and it was like I want to say it was like $26. And then they released it in paperback a week later. Bastards. Absolute bastards. And I tried the library. Wasn't happening, man. Old Testament is still a banger, to be honest. But is it grimdark? Someone make that video. Don't. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, I'm saying that wrong, would win this for me. That is a book I've wanted to read for a very, very long time, and I would love to get to it. The Buried Giant by Ishiguro. That's going to be my next Ishiguro. My surprise this year was Alvin Maker's series. Wasn't on my radar, but it came as a rec from Steve Donahue. It's Name of the Wind meets The Last of the Mohegans. It's an awesome series. I will check that out. That sounds really, really weird. Biggest surprise was The Sense of an Ending by Julian Barnes. I feel like I bought that. Everyone was surprised, it appears. Yes, they were surprised. Disappointing The Wandering Inn didn't win. That's some deep lore at this point, I think. The Hike by Drew Magary. Okay, the jaw drop on the last page. That's what you want to hear. That'll carry you through a whole book. The Book of Ecclesiastes is a fantastic work of literature, whether you're a believer or not. There are some stuff in the Bible that I genuinely still enjoy reading, even though, again, I'm, not religious. I've always thought a lot of Proverbs was kind of beautiful. I would have guessed The Willows would have been on here. Monica, this was so close. Like I said, the cut was brutal. I spent a lot more time trying to think about who should be on this screen than I did who won them for the most part, I would say. So a lot of people giving love to Rebecca. Love to see that. Clarissa was a great surprise. Every Man Reads is trying to get me to read the longest book ever written. Or at least one of them. Top 3 for sure. He's trying. He's trying, but he's failing so far. All right, we'll move on from the surprise of the year to another one that I'm very excited about. The sequel of the year. You rascals thought I only read book 1s, and you were wrong. I read a lot more sequels than I did book 1s this year. I don't know if that's actually true, but don't call me on it. I know Mitch will go to my Goodreads and find out. I guarantee you he'll be in the chat with that or in the comments for sure. But we're going to talk about sequels because as a book one guy, if I read a book two, you ought to know that I really mean it. And I like the series. And this was another really tough one. We had the strength of the few, and even though I had some criticisms about it, I really did enjoy the ending of it and kind of what we're going to be getting out of book three. So the parameters for this were, I really wanted book three not to be out in the series. I don't know why that was so important to me, but also I wanted it to be a proper improvement on book one, if it could be. And I really wanted it to say, hey, I can't wait to read book three. And, you know, I'm actually looking at this list and I have to make sure. Yes, I did. I put the right Robert Jackson Bennett book. I thought for a second, I thought I didn't. Let's go over these bad boys, shall we? Moon Witch Spider King by Marlon James. This is the second book in the Dark Star trilogy, which is now a trilogy I think is going to probably end up, unfortunately, with the Scott Lynch's, Patrick Rothfuss, George R. R. Martin's, the Canterbury Tales, whatever's not finished. I don't think Moon Witch Spider King is going to see a third book, but gosh, do I hope. It is my number one want from a trilogy, I should say. Even more than Doors of Stone, to be honest. Moon Witch Spider King follow-up. It is basically getting to the history of a character that is included in book one that we do not get a POV from, and we have certain beliefs from the first POV of the first book and their biases and their experience with this character. This second book dives in a little bit deeper and really switches the POV in a way that I think makes everything feel very fresh. This book was sold to me as a retelling of everything in book one. That is not a good selling point of this book. I don't love stories like that anyways, but this book is like 80% new material, 20% retelling, and both sections rule. This is not a perfect book, just like Black Leopard, Red Wolf. There's a lot of parts of it that I'm like, why didn't we cut this down? What are we doing here? I think once Marlon James won his awards, they probably let him run a little bit buck wild. I think only about 6 of us bought this book, unfortunately. I really just don't see book 3 coming. He's written, I think, 1 or 2 more books since. At least he has one coming. Very sad, but also he should do whatever he wants. So I'm not that sad. A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett. I can never remember what this series is called, but the first one was The Tainted Cup. Someone can put in the chat what this series is actually called. I always forget. I saw some people who love The Tainted Cup did not enjoy this as much. I thought that we got out of the way a lot of the stuff that Robert Jackson Bennett wanted to build into this world and build into this characters and kind of what's giving them their motivations. I don't think Robert Jackson Bennett is the most skilled when it comes to sprinkling in world building. Not that it's that offensive. Exposition is a sin that I think most, I shouldn't call it a sin. It's a device. Some exposition is good. I can't, do you understand what it's like to live in my head? I argue with myself about everything. And as I said that, I was like, nope. It's not a sin because it's not always bad. This is the exhaustion that I deal with. What I'm trying to say is I don't think Robert Jackson Bennett is the best at being sly about giving that exposition. So with all that out of the way from book 1, which in spite of that, I still loved book 1. I thought book 2 just had a lot of a highway in front of it to kind of ride and build the story. And it had its own kind of individual feel, like almost like episodic, but also continuing some things from prior books. I really think this series has to go a little bit more epic for me because the world building is so insane. So I'm hoping book 3 has that. But as far as a book 2 goes and enjoying the series, I think I like this just as much or more than Tainted Cup, which is awesome. Stephen Erickson's No Life Forsaken has made me remember why I love Malazan, but also how much I've missed this world and these characters, because Stephen Erickson finally decided to give us a little bit of what we want. And I said that this feels like the first true sequel to the first 10. That is objectively false because The God Is Not Willing is book 1 and it is a sequel. And there is stuff that we have from the first 10. But this felt way more consequential to what we learned in the first 10. And to me, the characters that show up were I mean, I haven't been in that good of a mood reading a fantasy book in a long time. And I also just love Stephen Erickson's writing. I think he was kind of firing on all cylinders. I was a little bit hesitant on the ending. I just kind of felt one, retreaded ground a little bit, but also kind of anticlimactic, even though it was on purpose. I have since kind of changed my view of the ending. I think I appreciate it a little bit more, but I still stand by the fact that, time is kind of a cycle, and some of these points we've been over once or twice already in the series. And that was really the only downside to it. But No Life Forsaken was an absolute pleasure. Probably the most I was freaking out while reading a book, except for one other book that I'll talk about in a little bit. Then we have Tana French, The Hunter, which is a series that I think is just absolutely fantastic. This is the Clay series. I can't remember what this series is called either. It doesn't really matter. Book 1 was fantastic. The Searcher. Book 2 continues the story with the characters that I fell in love with in book 1, and is The Hunter. And I thought that it ruled. It still kept those small town Irish vibes while making the scope of it feel a lot bigger, because we have people returning from other parts of the world and coming home to maybe have nefarious intent potentially, but still have some kind of family ties to the area. So people want to believe the best in this person, but I think that they honestly were just a bag of shit, and was well-written bag of shit, in my opinion. Tana French is so good. It's offensive. I think The Hunter was absolutely fabulous. I think it was, I want to say, just as good as The Searcher, because The Searcher to me was a 5-star read, and so was this. I think every book on here was either a 4 to a 5-star, somewhere around there. If you're going to start with Tana French's series, I just saw this in the chat. I would definitely ask StoryTube, but I think The Searcher would be a fine place to start, because that's where I started and I'm having a great time. So, but the winner for sequel of the year goes to The Moon Witch. Well, it's not even it's just Moon Witch Spider King by Marlon James. This is probably one I want to put a big asterisk on and just say, if you guys try out this series, you're probably not going to like it. This has to be probably one of the most hated series that I happen to be a massive fan of. There's polarizing series, Stormlight, A Song of Ice. Everything that gets popular is polarizing. This is not popular, and it's polarizing. So I think more people might be negative on this series. But if it works for you and you can really get into some of the world building that's kind of structured around African mythology and everything in Africa prior to any sort of Islam or Christian influence, it is fascinating, on top of being written in a manner that I've never read in fantasy. I am very much a big fan of people who have a writing style. Regardless of whether I even like it, I will immediately tip my cap to someone who has a writing style that isn't just kind of plain. And Marlon James is anything but plain. It is I would almost describe it as a harsh writing style, just because of how blunt a lot of the stuff is. A lot of sexual trauma goes into these, and sexual violence that honestly is very difficult to get through, and violence of epic proportions that will make your stomach churn. And he does it in such a harsh way, but sometimes I'll finish a sentence and I'll just be like, how did he piece all this together? It's kind of insane. So he has a style. I happen to like that style, even though it took me a while to get used to it. But once you get into gear, it just kind of goes. And not so much that the entire book feels smooth or everything should be in there. I think these books certainly could use some editing. I think this is his fun project. I think he was having a blast. I just think that when it comes to like depth of the world, Marlon James has a very, very good idea of how all these things function. And then when you come to unreliable narrators, it's some of the best stuff in the genre to me. I don't know how other people would feel, but to me, this unreliable narration comes from multiple characters, which is awesome. And we are all, 6 of us who like this series, are wondering who the third book POV will be. There's guesses. There is theory crafting for this trilogy, if you can understand everything that's in it. But it's hard for me not to put this at the top of my list for sequel of the year, just for the sole fact that out of every single trilogy I'm waiting on, easily this is the one that I want the most. And there are a lot of trilogies out there I really enjoy, but I won't be surprised when this is all wrapped up if this isn't my favorite trilogy of all time, which I actually said in my best trilogy stream a little while back. So with all that said, you probably shouldn't read it. I hate to say that, but it's true. I always say this, if you guys are sold by this or you're just curious, go read the sample of Black Leopard, Red Wolf. This is not a case, if you didn't like Black Leopard, Red Wolf, that you're going to love this one. That is not the case. You don't need to read the book 2 till it gets good. If you don't like Black Leopard, Red Wolf, I don't think that you'll like the sequel. This series is very consistent, for better or for worse. So, oh, Britton said he'll be reading Ton of French. Let's go, dude. Jimmy looking like Shanks with the way his arms cut off in the frame. Damn. You right. The Big Nowhere by James Elroy. Shadow of the Leviathan. Is that what this series is called? That's a sick name. Why don't I remember that? I'm dumb. I'm so dumb. Tito said, just got Marlon James book 1. My girl is Jamaican. I figured I had to read some Jamaican fantasy. Glad to hear it's good. Yeah, you're gonna really appreciate it. I don't know. Is it considered Jamaican fantasy? I don't know. I'm not sure. Oh man, you should read Brief History of 7 Killings. I haven't finished it, but that is the most Jamaican thing I've ever read. I haven't read a lot of Jamaican stuff, though, to be fair. I haven't finished the main 10 of Malazan, but I will be offended if it's not No Life Forsaken. I'm sorry. Gotta be a layup for Erickson. Dang. Book 3 is a release for me for Drop of Corruption. Hey, does anyone know when the 3rd book's coming out? I hope it's next year. Be great. No Life Forsaken was definitely the big pick. We had 2 people from Moonwitch Spider King. My surprise of the year was how much I hated the Strength of the Few, especially after absolutely loving the Will of the Many. I don't think you're alone in that, unfortunately. I definitely disliked parts of it, but I think overall I still enjoyed it, and I'd be a liar to say I'm not going to read book 3. I will. Claw of the Conciliator is my favorite book 2 this year. Best twist. I really enjoy Claw of the Conciliator. Very good. The Rose of Jericho by Alex Gratian. I will read it, Mitch. I promise. Okay? I promise. If Sisters in the Wind counts as a sequel, that is my sequel of the year. I don't know what that is, but now I'm very curious. Very, very curious. Man, this must have really stuck with you. Never would have guessed this while you were reading. So Ben is here in chat, and he's one of the few people I have to talk to about this series. And I think I was complaining about a lot of this book while also being interested. I think by the end I was kind of sold, and I was like, God, I was like, you know what? When I think about it, actually, I really want book 3, even though I had plenty of issues. I'm conflicted about the series, but I think I just settled on the fact that I love it. Like, I care enough to care. Does that make sense? There's a lot of books I'm apathetic about. This is not one of them. Mine was The White Luck Warrior. Very, very based. House of Chains takes this category. It is probably a runner-up for Book of the Year. Dang, okay. Warrior Prophet. It's like people are trying to... It's almost like people that watch my channel read the stuff I read. How weird. Polarized because it manages to piss off both litfic and fantasy fans. Dude, Verum. Hope I'm saying that right. You nailed it. This is the same thing that I see with Claire and the Sun. Sci-fi people say, this isn't sci-fi. This is shit sci-fi. And then I see contemporary fiction fans, litfic fans go, oh, this is just sci-fi idea slot from Ishiguro. And I'm over here like, I think this might be his second best book he's ever written. And this is, dude, you nailed it. You nailed it for sure. Visceral. That's a good way of describing Marlon James. Samoki said, I really liked how James attuned his writing style to the characters. Sogalong's much colder than Tracker, so her style is more blunt, economical. Yeah, and he maintains the ability to write with style pretty much the entire time, which is amazing. It's something I look for in books. It's something I enjoy in books. I love what I read of Black Leopard, Red Wolf. It just demands a few more brain cells and more than that I have. Not what you have, just what you have energy for. And you're right. It is one of the denser reads I've ever had, to be honest with you. So, best second book of an incomplete trilogy that might not even be completed. Just wouldn't fit across the top of the screen. Okay, we're not sure if it's Jamaican. I mean, there's certainly probably a Jamaican influence on it, but Brief History of 7 Killings is straight up Jamaican and dense. It's so dense. The Scar is more like another story set in a Bass-like universe. It's more of a prequel, an explanation of the story. Yeah, I would agree with that. Rose of Jericho was good. I own it. I will definitely read it for sure. The Butcher's Masquerade is my sequel of the year. Where would you recommend one starts with Ishiguro? I would say either... Oh, man, a lot of people say Never Let Me Go. I think The Remains of the Day is his finest work. So it's a kind of a double-edged sword if you end up starting with it, because I don't think he ever gets that good again. I haven't read all of his stuff, though, to be fair. Of what I've read, I think Claire of the Sun's actually a really great place to start, because I think it's pretty relevant to what we're seeing or where we're going in the world. But I do think Clara in the Sun requires a lot of consideration of what he's not saying about the world state and speculation from the reader's side. I think it's much better to be read with other people who are into the read, not so much just trying to say this is good or bad, but people who are just engaging with what is given. I had that experience, and I think I talked about the world building, which there is no world building in the book really, other than some throwaway sentences. I think I talked for like 3 or 4 hours with Joanna and Murphy about it. It was awesome. I think a lot of fantasy authors could take a lesson from that book, and the fact that you can do a lot with a little when it comes to interesting situations within the world or how the world works. Storm of Swords is the GOAT sequel. So I should say this. This specifically was a Book 2 award for me. It doesn't have to be for you, but it was for me because of the meme of me never reading Book 2s. I thought it would be funny. So Pale View of Hills is short and distinct. It was my first and only so far. Yeah, I think it's the weakest of his writing. I still think it's a pretty great book, and I think the ending is really good. So, could be. Did Ballingrud rip off James with a book titled Moon Crypt Spider Queen? That's amazing. Never Let Me Go can be polarizing. I think Remains of the Day is something anyone can at least enjoy, because we all, at the end of the day, are English butlers. And that wasn't sarcasm. That's actually a whole thing. I've talked about it here on the channel before. All right, next one, Shorty of the Year. This was my favorite award last year, just because I think it's fun, and I think short fiction is far underrepresented and on my channel and other places. I love short stuff. So the parameters of this had to be around 200 pages or shorter. I gave a little bit of page to everything. This was the most contended award of the year. Yeah, this is definitely the most contentious. I reordered these ones 3 or 4 times. It was very difficult to pick. So we already have Lazarus, which I've already talked about at length. We have I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This was translated, I think French, but it's a translated work. Apparently it has been very popular places in the world, but now that it has been brought to English-speaking countries, it has blown up in popularity, and I think for pretty good reason. This is a post-apocalyptic science fiction novel of women that have been trapped in cages and are not really sure why, and our main character is someone who has only ever known the captivity, whereas other people that have been locked up with her lived in the world before whatever happened. Really, really powerful story. It's one that I kind of ruminated on many weeks after I've read it, and I still think about this book to this day. It is very short. I don't think it's the most eventful book, so if you're a big plot reader, I wouldn't go into that. It's definitely a little bit more about the themes. Ogres by Adrian Tchaikovsky, whatever, A.T., old Adrian, big eyebrows Adrian. Ogres, a lot of people talk about Ogres and how good it is, but they're not wrong. I was very curious to see how I would feel about it. Certainly has anti-capitalism vibes. It's very short. I won't give away too much, but this book went places that I did not expect. And there was even a twist that I was like, oh, I really didn't want to go this way. But by the end, it kind of won me over. Good characters, fast-paced, short, kind of everything you could want for. This is my favorite Tchaikovsky. This is my favorite one of him. Also, fun fact, A.T. was the author I read the most of this year. I read the most books by him. And I enjoyed quite a few of them. The other stories in that collection I read Ogres and were good, but I really think Ogres was fantastic. And then we have The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, which kind of is all about beauty and a young Black girl in Ohio growing up in her community and how they see beauty and how family matters and support matters and what you say to people matters. That's probably about as brief as I could be about that. If you want to know anything more about The Bluest Eyes, I honestly think the video I made about The Bluest Eyes is one of the best videos I've ever made, and I'm very proud of it. It was not super duper popular because I don't think a lot of people who watch my channel were tuning in for The Bluest Eye or stuff by Toni Morrison. But I'm very happy with that video for the most part. And I think it does a good job of kind of explaining why it was so impactful to me and why I think it could be impactful to you. But the Shorty of the year, drum roll please. I wonder how obvious this is. I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. Oh man. What a just sad book. Also compelling in its own right, makes you wonder. I think that the dynamic of about information and the secrecy of which we have is really interesting. But one of the things I don't see is talked about as much in this book and that has really stuck with me is the need to hold things over other human beings in any situation possible. No matter what you are, what your circumstances, whether you're locked up, you're free, you're the richest, you're the poorest, we always, for some reason, attempt to leverage things over other people. And the thing that seems to be leveraged here is information. How much information can there actually be in a locked up cell with these women? You'll have to read and find out. But they do not like when our main character has a secret. And I think that that just whips the power dynamic around in a way that is so subtle and so small, but so fascinating. Those power dynamics really drove me into the book, got me into it, but then there's tons of stuff that goes on after it. And just the perspective of life in this kind of situation, I think was really cool. Well, maybe cool is not the word, but worth reading about. So this was, let me look back at the nominees real quick, because I can't remember everything. I mean, I think it was between this and The Bluest Eye, probably. Ogres was really good too, though. I mean, they're all good. Like I said, this was the most heavily contended one that I had to select. So let's see what the reaction is from the nosebleeds, if you will. I'm actually making decent time. I'm actually really proud of myself right now. Probably going to have a bit of a lengthy wrap up at the end too. So mapping the interior got to make this one for me. Yeah, I've heard it's pretty great. Lazarus going to walk away with 2 awards. I read I Who Have Never Known Men. This one, absolutely loved it. Definitely a book I would like to reread one day. I think that was the first thing I said after I finished. I was like, I need to reread this because I definitely missed some things to probably think about, but pretty great. Lazarus, I could see why people thought Lazarus would be that. Bluest Eye was one of my books of the year last year. It's a phenomenal book in my opinion. Small Things Like These would win this for me by Mike Dole, or not by Mike Dole, but by Claire Keegan. Mike Dole said it. Almost gave you credit for a wonderful, wonderful piece of fiction. I still need to read Ogres. My 2026 TBR is already smothering me. Ogres is worth your time. It'll be quick. If Another Man wins, Evie and I are boycotting the rest of the stream. That's valid. Short of the year for me would be Lazarus, followed close by The Unworthy by Augustina Basterica. Please pitch that to me in Discord, Evie. I beg you. Bluest Eyes. Okay. Train Dreams. Here's a question in the chat. I'm actually very curious. Did you all feel like you read more short books or short stories this year than you did last year? I definitely did. And that was intentional. And it's going to continue in 2026. I should also mention, I probably read like 30 George R. R. Martin short stories, and they were all phenomenal. I don't think any of them would have won my award for the year. Possibly one probably could have made the nomination list that I can't remember. I couldn't remember the names of them. And I just didn't really feel like going and getting my dream song because there were so many already. I think I had like 18 things on this list and I had to cut it. But just so you guys know, Dream Songs, excellent collection. My pick would be The Body by Stephen King. Jimmy liked a sad book. That's crazy. Simon, you know me well. My favorite short was Blue and Gold, one of Salonius novellas by K.J. Parker. I really want to read Purple and Black. I sadly didn't get as much out of I Have Never Known Men as everyone else seems to. So Rebecca, I actually agree with this in some respect because while I got enough to love it and give it the nut button and everything else, I'll hit the nut button just because, you know, people want to hear it. I think there's still more to get and I want to read it again. So I didn't even feel like I got all of it, but I hope to one day, hopefully. Mine is 20 Simple Steps to Ventriloquism by John Paget. I bought this in a New Orleans dark red themed bar because Amanda is so persuasive. For me, the shorty of the year would be Parker's Back by Flannery O'Connor, or Beyond the Black River by Robert E. Howard, one of the best Conan stories. I enjoyed the first Conan story I read, even though it was fairly simple. I would definitely like to try that one. And Flannery O'Connor is someone, I have so many of her books and I have not read any. Mouthful of Dust by, I don't know how to say that name. I'm not going to try. I'm sorry. I think I own this, by the way. Okay, this is cool. So Muzz Wright says, I Who Have Never Known Men didn't work for me, but I read it for a book club and the discussion really changed my perspective on it. Definitely a good book for a buddy read. I think, how I was talking about Claire and the Sun a little bit earlier and talking about how, like, if you're discussing it and really just trying to engage with the material, I think you can get a ton out of it. I think that this is probably one of those books also. Ben, you should definitely read this. Short of the year for me was Sand Kings by George R. R. Martin. I believe that won mine 2 years ago or last year. I can't remember. I Have Never Known Men also didn't work for me. Well, there's just a bunch of haters here. Read the book right. I'm just kidding. I hate people do that. My short of the year goes to Tarzan of the Apes. So much better than I expected it to be. I would have never guessed that. Short books go both ways for me. Blow my mind all the way up or hit so hard that they make me think inward. Rare for them to be well done, in my humble opinion. Interesting. Okay. Small things like these. Casually blowing through my Kindle credits right now. Oh, well, I hope it all works out. I really hope. Shorty of the year for me is Brighter Than Scale, Swifter Than Flame. Okay, very cool. Epic Gamer says William Gibson's The Night Market and Fragment of a Hologram Rose are excellent short stories I read this year, and also KJ Parker's Prosper's Demon was fun. A lot of KJ Parker. I always hear that his short fiction is better than his novels. I hope so. No, I'm just kidding. Roadside Picnic is my shorty of the year. Pretty much a legendary pick, I would say. George Saunders is a guy I have a book from on writing. And what is it, like a drop in the pool or something? I don't know. Pond. I know everyone will know what it is, but I've enjoyed reading George Saunders reading short stories a lot. So I should probably actually try some of his works. I read a lot of Short Kings this year. Train Dreams is probably my favorite. What is Train Dreams? Okay, who wrote it? Who wrote Train Dreams? I keep seeing this. Life Cycle of Software Objects is my favorite. Have I read that? I think I did. The Hedge Knight, very good pick. Very good pick. Novellas are certainly having a moment in the last few years. I think it's just, if you think about media, everything is being condensed. And I've often wondered if we're going to see an explosion of microfiction and short stories. I know that there was like a little blip for microfiction. I'm not as big into microfiction. I'm not saying there's not good stuff out there, but it's not something I seek out. So, made serious Dream Songs progress this year. Fave so far is Laia, but this year was And 7 Times Never Kill a Man. I think that's one of the ones I really liked. If I remember, I didn't like I Have Never Known Men either. Dang, man, I would buy a nut button if you sold them. I should probably do. Just missing out on all that revenue, bro. What a shame. What a shame. Mouthful of Dust. So this is great because, like I said, I'm really, really into reading shorter fiction. And I think 99% of the stuff you guys have mentioned, I've never heard of. So pretty great, which is great. Great, pretty great. Sometimes you just got to fill the air. Meowcat347 said, my book club is also reading I Who Have Never Known Men, and I cannot wait. Okay. Inheritance by Robin Hobb. I've actually not read that. I should probably do that, huh? Ogres is my favorite Tchaikovsky novel, and I would also have picked A Never Known Men. Well, that makes me feel better, Mendelin. At least somebody likes this book. Obviously kidding. Dennis Johnson wrote Train Dreams. All right, I got to look this up. I got to look this up. The Devil You Know is an excellent introduction to KJ Parker's short work. Good to know. Flowers for Algernon was my shorty of the year. I think I'm definitely reading that in 2026. No commitment, but I'll probably read it. Train Dreams just got adapted. Oh, okay. It all makes sense now. Nobody loves you until you're adapted. I'm just kidding. Dennis Johnson also wrote Jesus' Son, which is my favorite short story collection of all time. That sounds interesting. Oh, and it's a finalist for the Pulitzer. See? I don't know anything. Lincoln and Bardo by Saunders was my Patreon pick for a while. I love how he tells the stories through actual news clipping. Oh, I love stories that do that. Like, isn't it Salem's Lot that tells a little bit through the papers? If Kev is here, he'll know. Though, honestly, he probably went to reach out of the torture, and I don't blame him. So, next award, Horror Book of the Year. I do want to preface this with, out of all the genres I read, horror was the smallest of the bunch. So this probably doesn't carry as much weight. And the other thing I want to address is I know that Boy's Life is honestly kind of a tour de force when it comes to what genres it includes. It kind of has a little bit of everything, but I stuck with Horror Book of the Year just because of how haunting the one event is for a certain character. And I thought it was just awesome. So I guess I'm kind of pitching Boy's Life, but very much a coming of age story. See people kind of relate it to it. Sure, I think I like Boy's Life more than it, in fact. I think it really nails friendship, relationships, but also trauma. One of my favorite examples of someone not letting a character get away for free when going through something horrifying. I think it's awesome. So, and there was some stuff I didn't love in the book, but overall, definitely, I think I got the nut button and it definitely deserved it. We have The Passage by Justin Cronin, which is a post-apocalyptic vampire novel. This is one of those books that people love, or they think it starts great and then ends poorly because of a switch in the middle of the book or early on in the book. I happen to be one of the people that thought the switch was just fine. Been seeing a little bit more lately of people enjoying the novel past the time jump, which makes me happy. But The Passage by Justin Cronin was also my first book by Justin Cronin, and I've seen mixed reviews for his other stuff, but I still want to read it. Red Rabbit by Alex Gratian. I kind of already talked about this. It's fantastic, as well as The Crypt of the Moon Spider. You're seeing some things reoccur, and that's not by mistake. But there can only be one for this, unfortunately, because I think all these books honestly deserve their award. But the Horror Book of the Year goes to The Passage by Justin Cronin. The Passage by Justin Cronin is the first in a series, and I am going to read the rest of the series as long as book 2 continues to be enjoyable for me. One of my favorite openings to a book, and I think a lot of people who don't like this book actually agree with that. The polarizing part is after this incredible opening, there is a time jump and it becomes a lot more about like why this apocalyptic event is happening and more so about how people are still surviving. I happen to love that format. I have always loved knowing what, like being in the moment, like apocalyptic movies and such, they're almost all bad, but I actually end up loving them quite a bit. I don't love when it's like, what are we doing like a week after? I want to see the ramifications far, far, far down the rabbit hole. Sorry, I had to take a drink. And Justin Cronin, to me, writes really great dialogue. He also wrote relatable characters. There were a couple times where I thought things were a little bit long in the tooth. This book is very beefy, but overall kind of focused on the things I love, which is the inciting incident of the apocalypse and then the way down the road future. And to me, this is compared to The Stand a lot, if I'm not mistaken. I like this more than The Stand, and I like The Stand quite a bit. But it has me very excited to continue on. There's a lot of questions that I have towards the end of this book. And for a large book, it did not feel like a large book. And that doesn't happen for me very often. It happened twice this year, maybe 3 times. And I think those are the first 3 times in quite a while where I didn't feel the page count. So I'm telling you, you might hate the time jump. I don't. I love it. And this has to be in the top 5 post-apocalyptic novels for me, and certainly one of the more spooky horror ones. I do want to say this. I think I'm going to go back, obviously the Passage one, but I'm going to go back here just so people can know what I'm talking about. So The Passage is my favorite plot. Red Rabbit is my favorite for the absolute just horror vibes and supernatural done in a way that I think is amazing, like very unique to me. Crypt of the Moon Spider gets the WTF award, like the absolute like bizarre weirdness Like it has the most atmosphere potentially. And then Boy's Life is the most emotionally impactful of this bunch. So each of these books had the goods to win the award. I just went with the one that I think I would rank the highest in a list of books of the year. But each of these books were the best at something. Arguably the best in any genre, actually. Especially when it comes to Red Rabbit and Boy's Life. So I kind of wanted to highlight the fact that even though this is a genre of horror, it's just like every other genre where there's a large range of what can be done. And I'll continue to read horror books into the new year for sure, no doubt. Very, very exciting. I will say this. I was very conflicted about whether The Devils could be on this list, and I put it in fantasy just because I feel Abercrombie writes more fantasy, but I think The Devils was also a horror novel that I really did enjoy as well. If you like stories told through news clippings, check out the USA trilogy by John Dos Passos. Okay, very cool. If Red Rabbit doesn't win, I will delete Jimmy's channel. Boy's Life rules. I agree with you. This was a stacked list, and some good ones that got left off too. Haunting of Hill House was very close to making the list. I just couldn't decide what to cut, and I didn't. It was between that and the Moon Crypt, but I just thought, or the Crypt of the Moon Spider, and I just thought Crypt of the Moon Spider, for how short it was, just did so much. So it was tough. Boy's Life, maybe The Passage. That Red Rabbit cover is so pleasing. I agree. The book is disturbing. Boy's Life was my favorite book of the year. Do not blame you at all for that. Love to see it. Maybe I can eventually convince Jimmy to start Corbett McCammon Kicks So Much Ass. Easily the next one I'll read from him. And I think out of all of his books, those are the ones that I am expecting to like the most, where I'll take it from an author I appreciate to like, that I love, right? I really need to reread The Passage. It's been almost 50 years. The book was so good. Kev said, Boy's Life or there'll be hell to pay, Jimmy. Oh, hell nah. I'm sorry. I do hate disappointing people. It's the worst. House on the Borderlands was robbed. Was it, though? Angela from the Literature Science Lines here. I get to be here live, and I'm glad that you are. Guards was robbed. What? Down the Red Rabbit Hole? Perhaps, mayhaps. I picked up the whole Passage trilogy in secondhand shops across the past year or two. No idea when I'm getting around to it. Maybe it should be sooner. I would love to get the book too. The problem that I have with the series is the books are just insanely big. I like The Ferryman by Justin Cronin, good sci-fi story. I am very interested. I actually thought that sounded more interesting than The Passage, but I've seen way more mixed reviews about Ferryman, which I'm not too concerned about because it's all subjective anyways. I think The Ferryman will probably be something that works pretty well for me. So, The Devils was Dan's. Okay, so you'd include it in horror comedy. Book of the year. It was a smidge disappointing though. Yeah, I feel like I'm on an island by myself with feeling like it was just as good as all the other Abercrombie. I know that that's not the popular. It doesn't seem like it's the consensus online, but you know, I really loved it. I thought it was great. StoryTube. Hey, James. Nice timing. I'm hammered. Going to sleep. Love you. Love you too. Everyone check out the Tubies this weekend. Tell Me I'm Worthless by Allison Rumfit. Horror novel of the decade for me. Oh, yeah. Okay. I remember this is one that you told me about, and it sounded killer. All about fascism is what I remember. Oh, Jordan said, I love The Ferryman by Cronin. Super polarizing, though. Very cool. Authority by Vandermeer had by far the scariest scene I read this year, though. Vandermeer is an author I need to read more of. There should be an award for best and worst book covers. Crypt of the Moonspire would win both this year. That was a good comment. The Day of the Triffids wins this for me. I bought that, I think, based on your recommendation. Haunting of Hill House for me was definitely in the consideration. Wounds by Nathan Ballingrud. Look who it is. AP Canavan, a critical dragon. Hi, Jimmy. Can't stay, but I wanted to wish you and yours Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's. To you as well. I don't know if you're still here because I don't know how far back I am, but let's talk soon. We should talk soon. It's been too long. Don't make me get on a plane and come to the state where you are because I don't want to go there, but I will. I'll find you. I'll find you and make you edit my bad short stories. Mine was a comic, Beneath Where the Trees Were. Is it were or where? Nobody sees. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. I'm sorry. It's a great title. Dang, I forgot today was Friday. Being off work yesterday's messed me up. It's all good. I am now buying The Passage. Oh my gosh. Boy's Life is Horror, more like a lit fic book. My favorite is Barker's Books of Blood. Yeah, like I said this kind of at the beginning. I sorted these into genres based on just the vibes I had. Like I said at the beginning, if you disagree, you're probably right, and you're probably right. I read The Stand some years ago, and I'm reading the graphic novels this year, so those would be mine. Very cool. Scott, this is why I need you around. Said The Devils was masked for We Stand Together, Jimmy. All two of us. Okay, never mind. Angela said it's her favorite Abercrombie. Well, that's crazy. Putting so many books on hold of our library based on this stream. That's what I'm here for. Horror book of the year for me has to be The Har by David Sodergren. It's about a shape-shifting slimy sea creature munching people. He is an indie author who writes short story horror with tons of gore. Okay, very cool. Muzzwright says, I read The Devils at the perfect time for me. It was weirdly a very cozy read for me. Okay, well, it would seem that it's Devils is more well received here than anywhere else. Can we count Blindness as a horror book? Most interesting I've ever read by far. Yeah, I think it's like sci-fi horror, lit fic, whatever. It's kind of one of those things that kind of mash things together. That book did not deliver as much as I had hoped, but I would be a liar to say if some of those scenes weren't the most harrowing things I've ever read. It's probably like one of those books that is terrifying that you wouldn't expect, which is kind of how I felt about the 3 Body Problem trilogy, Remembrance of Earth's Past. So many scenes that like haunted me that I was not expecting to read in that series. I think Blindness is also in that category for sure. I really liked A Day of the Door by Laurel Hightower. Everyone has such like wildly diverse takes. I know there's a couple sames, but like so many books I haven't heard of. This is awesome. My horror book and book of the year was The Fisherman by John Langan. Langan, by the way. I think I have heard of this. Devil's made my list. I love it. All right. I also love it. I was wrong. Okay. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Just what you see. You know what I mean? Hobo Giant said, Jimmy, where are all those Dark Lord fiction books you read? They're hiding. They're hiding. Jimmy, I recommend The Terror by Dan Simmons if you want to try another great horror novel. I've actually watched the show. I thought the show was really good. I don't know if I'll read it. It's unclear. Maybe. All right. Next one is fiction book of the year. And really what this means is just like general fiction. You can call it literary fiction. You can call it contemporary fiction. Just kind of throw these in here. I've already talked about this. What Can We Know is technically a sci-fi book, but this is one of those times where I made an executive decision and said, no, it's not. It has sci-fi elements possibly, but this is much more than that. It's kind of like Boy's Life in the sense that it's really hard to put it somewhere. I feel way more confident that this should go here than Boy's Life going in horror for what it's worth. So this was a tough one. I've already talked about Power of the Dog. The most violent book I've ever read, including Blood Meridian, but also addictively written. Crazy book. James kind of talked about Huckleberry Finn retelling from James's perspective. Absolutely loved it. You do not have to read Huckleberry Finn to read James. I think personally, however, it's one of the better writers living or dead. And then What Can We Know? As I said, this is, I guess, you know what? I don't think I've ever talked about what this book is about. I just said that you shouldn't read the back of the book. So I'm going to tell you what We Can Know is about finally at an hour and a half into the stream. God, I don't know why y'all watch me. So What Can We Know is about 100 or a couple hundred years in the future, if I'm not mistaken. Might be like the 2400s, I think. Someone can look at it. It doesn't matter. It is in the future, far enough where a couple generations removed. Climate change has drastically changed the shape of the world. The U.S. has fallen into like hostile territories with warlords. Different continents are actually rising up as superpowers. I think one of them is actually Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken. And England has essentially been turned into very, very small islands. There's other stuff going on, and it is so interesting to read about just what's happened in the few hundred years and how we got here. So it has a little bit of that post-apocalyptic feel, which I really, really like, but it's not like a full apocalypse. Like the apocalypse hasn't really happened yet. And you're in the head of someone who is, they finally have universities again, and this person is teaching like poetry and literature and English and all these things. And it is even less popular than it is today, because we all know, like, really no one reads outside of us people. Like, most people just don't read. Well, even less people read now. And the reason why is because whenever you're going through essentially a world-changing event and through an era that has been very tumultuous, you stop focusing on progress and you start focusing on survival. This is a character who is desperately trying to head back towards progress, but also appreciate history. And this book goes into rose-tinted glasses, how we view history, how much of it is our spin in our mind on how things were, or how they should have been, or how they are now. And it has a lot of implications about the character and its their relationship with other people. Okay. The entire plot of this novel is that this guy, this professor, is obsessed with a poem that was written by the greatest poet of the 21st century, or the 21st century, that is made up, of course. And there was a poem that was read at a dinner full of his peers that no one has ever read, that was gifted to that poet's wife. And this poem is of such notoriety and of such mystique of it being lost that there's like an entire conspiracy around the entire thing. And this guy is obsessed with finding it out. He's obsessed with everyone that was at that dinner party hundreds of years ago. That might sound really interesting. It's a lot duller than you would imagine. And I mean that with the most love possible. Okay. This has turned into too much of but what we can know. That's what it's about. I'm sorry that I took so long, but I feel like I should have said this earlier. The Blue Skies by Toni Morrison, which I've already described. The winner of the book of the year is James, my personal ever. Come on, you guys know. He won New Author to Me. This was super duper tight between James and Power of the Dog. That was the real two contenders. I have complaints. I thought The Blue Skies, while I love that book and obviously had a really big impact on me, there was parts of it that I didn't think were necessarily perfect. And, who am I to say that? But also, what we can know, I did not feel like the entire thing landed for me. There's actually a decision that I kind of think's a little bit cliche, but I'll talk about that in the wrap up. When it came to James, I was just sad it was over. I almost wanted another book like it. And book made me laugh. It made me cry. It made me so angry. It also made me see some of the best in humanity, even during some of the worst times. And I just think that takes a really special person. I think it takes a pretty special author. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. I have no complaints really about James. There are people who do, and they're valid in that, but not for me. And I think that Power of the Dog is also one of those books. It was neck and neck. And I ended up going with James just because I felt it in my gut. I really did. I also think that while Don Winslow's Power of the Dog is overtly violent in dealing with, politics, drug trade, human greed, the worst of our traits, the best of our traits, I just felt like I was so impressed with the range that James had for the story it told, if that makes sense. So to me, very tight, but James, my personal favorite, will win this award. And I'm happy. I'm very happy about it. A lot of people are begging for Don Winslow. Rebecca said it's going to be Power of the Dog since James already won. I won't lie to you. The fact that Percival Everett won Author of the Year, I was like, man, that's pretty lame to have him win too. But I can't, I was like, oh, that's so anticlimactic. But it is what it is. It's just how I feel. So I get it. I wouldn't be surprised had I actually picked Power of the Dog. Overall, Ian McEwan falls under literary fiction. Yeah. Seems like he has like sci-fi elements to his stuff, but that's not really the heart of the story, right? Langan is one of the best horror contemporary authors. Fisherman is good. His short stories are great. Cool. This is the same lineup as the new author year. Going to be James. Yeah, it was. I know. I'm sorry. James is my guess for a winner here. You know, this is like the match before the main event where you have to like kind of kill the crowd. People go bathroom breaks to get settled in for the main event, because the main event's obviously the science fiction and fantasy book of the year. That's what this is. I don't really believe that, but yeah. By the way, Kev, good on you for catching on to that. StoryTube guessed James. You would have been correct. What can we know about what can we know? Golden Drummer says, oh man, I recently just finished Power of the Dog. So good. Also some of the most effed up scenes. Most fucked up scenes I've ever read. And I read a lot of grimdark fantasy. Yeah, I think it's the most violent book I've ever read. Made me very squeamish. We watch you because you're a true professional, Jimmy. We've been sitting on the edge of our seats for over an hour to hear what we can know is about. Also, definitely going to read it. You should. That's going to be one of those ones when I talked about the wrap up. I'll go a little bit more into it. It'll probably be decently the same spiel, but I'll try to go into more detail. It's one of the hardest books that I'll have to recommend, not because of the content of being graphic or anything like that, but because it is a dull book. I don't think dull is bad. So we'll talk about it next week when I wrap up the month. My fiction non-genre book of the year is Wounded by Percival Everett. Isn't that a Western, or am I wrong? So basically the poem and what we can know is that guy's Roman Empire. Literally. You nailed it. You nailed it. Let's see. Mine is Flight Behavior. Only read 2 non-science fiction books, but Flight Behavior was a 5-star read for sure. It's awesome. I'm excited to read more Everett, although James was only okay for me, but I blame the source material more than I do the author. Okay. Bias towards James because your Lord-given name, Jimmy? Absolutely. I'm so eager to start James, but I think I'll read Huckleberry first. You don't have to, but you definitely can. To me, it made me want to read Huckleberry, which is great. I'm trying to go on a book buying freeze for 2026. We'll have to buy some of these before the new year. Hey, go get the bookstore employee, have them, pile the books on your hands, have them help you out. They love it. Atonement by McEwen and Song for Solomon by Morrison were 2 of my favorites this year. I should totally check out Everett and Winslow. You should. And Atonement is probably the 3rd book I'll read by Ian. There's one about Thatcher and alternate history of artificial intelligence being discovered in like the 70s or 80s or something like that I think I'm going to read. I'm sure it'll have actually nothing to do with AI. Surtur by John Williams will win this category for me and probably several others. You know how I feel. I think that's a great thing. People that have complaints about books should be willing to back it up on the street beefs, in my opinion, unless they're bigger than me or better trained. $15 ebook for James is unconscionable. I have tried to become a Kindle girly like 5 times, and every time I run into something like that, but now I know that whatever, it's manipulation. It pisses me off a lot. Mine is A Gentleman in Moscow. Okay. Mine's Phased by our friend Tori Reeds, or Victoria Tekken. Victoria Tekken's a solid author name. I'm still debating between Lonesome Dove and The Count of Monte Cristo for my choice. Maybe the 2 best books I've ever read, and both this year. That's awesome. Those are also 2 self-defense weapons, because if you hit someone in the head with those bricks, they'll probably go down. My favorite fiction book was Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa. I've never heard of that. The Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich for me. You guys are killing me. Now that you read Ian McEwan, you need to read Atonement by him. I definitely will, 100%. We Do Not Part is my fiction book of the year by a good margin. I actually own that. By the way, big love to Denver and Dallas on the thumbnail. The first people to mention it. I'm not surprised. And thank you. They dressed up for this occasion. East of Eden is my winner for sure. A very Jimmy book, I think and hope. Now that I've heard more about East of Eden, I feel like I will read it after Grapes of Wrath, but I'm definitely going to read it for sure. Wounded is a modern Western. Yep, cool. My winner was To Kill a Mockingbird. Somehow I've never read it before this year. Is not what I expected to love this so much. I've actually never read it either, and I think I picked it up recently. Never Let Me Go for best fiction for me. That makes me so happy. That's awesome. I love it. Blood Meridian for me, though a reread. Grapes of Wrath for me from Shelf Unstable. I literally just mentioned it. She did a great job of pitching it, by the way. Mine is White Noise simply because I can argue the ones above it are genre. Okay. Trial by combat on street beef sounds amazing. Leave it to our mixed martial artist to want to do street beefs. Musashi is fantastic. Okay. Somebody remind me of that later, please. My favorite was Wandering In volume 583. Get out of here, dude. Colton says, James is such a banger. Read it because of you, Jimmy, and it rocked. I'm so glad. I'm so very glad. My Friends by Bachman and literary fiction for me. I've heard it's very good. Mrs. Nuts is a big Bachman fan. I feel like the Fantasy Network is also the fictional network now, not a complaint. Epic, you may have noticed the channel is no longer called the Fantasy Network. The channel is Chatting with Nuts. For this very reason. I read too widely to be pigeonholed into one thing. Also, like the discourse around like, what's wrong with fantasy booktube? I was just like, you know what? I don't really think I'm a part of that circle anymore anyways. And I said, well, time for a change. So I changed the channel name, obviously. Could legitimately see East Haven being a top 10 book of the year for Jimmy. Okay. The Roundhouse by that you're the second person. I gotta look this up. I'll be honest with you, The Roundhouse sounds like a terrible book. Like I'm just saying by the title, I don't know anything about it, but the title alone is horrible. Very curious. Very curious what it's actually about. Shall we get to the main event of the evening? The science fiction fantasy book of the year. Oh man. Oh man. Now Chatting with Nuts now with 38% fantasy. That's still the majority. It's still the majority. Oh, man, that's really good. Science fiction fantasy book of the year. There are 2 books on here that have not been in any other category, so I'll have to explain those. Moonwitch, Spider King, we already know. Windhaven by George R. R. Martin and Lisa Tuttle. This has been, I've owned this book for many, many years. Never really got around to it. I had heard that it was planned to have more, but then things happened, Game of Thrones, other successes, and they never really got back to it. But I also knew that the Windhaven is a novel of 3 novellas that are stitched together into one cohesive narrative, and it does come to a complete resolution. So it's not an unfinished series by any means, a stretch of the imagination. I actually had been misinformed by that. I remember it was a big meme back in the day. It's like, he didn't finish Song of Ice and Fire, and he also didn't finish Windhaven, but that's just simply not true. Windhaven is fine and complete and amazing. It's so good. Windhaven is part science fiction, a little bit fantasy, but it is about people who fly around with these really interesting wings, and these wings are very prestigious and important, and they belong to certain families, and they are certainly a symbol of power. I think traveling vast distances in short periods of time, or places that you can't walk to, has its values and would definitely be valued in a society kind of like this, where it's on a different planet and things are much different than they are here on Earth, though very recognizable in some respects. This book resonated with me, and I won't say anything else about it. You should go read it. It's very short. I can feel the George R. R. Martin influences on this, but it also has made me very keen to try Lisa Tuttle's works. This is an author that George R. R. Martin has talked about with the highest regard. I mean, of all the people he praises, Lisa Tuttle has to be near the top of the list, and I will read her other stuff for sure, because it didn't feel wholly like George R. R. Martin, and she did a lot of work on this, and I loved everything about this story. I love the ending. I love the characters. If I had to pick the most underrated science fiction fantasy book I've ever read, this could be it. I love this just as much as the Song of Ice and Fire novels, Dunk and Egg, Sand Kings, and that's saying a lot. It's nothing like those books, by the way. This is not the next Song of Ice and Fire. The reason why it resonated with me, though, is because this book was about somebody who has really wrapped up their life and who they are and their identity in something that they do, or a role, or a title, a label. And once that is no longer the case, they have to figure out how they move on and how they continue to interact with people in this community. And that is, without a doubt, the story of my life from my past in professional wrestling, and doing that for a large portion of my life, and feeling it was taken away from me in some respect. Very difficult. It's something that I have kind of moved past, but I still wrestle with it a lot. Get it? Wrestle with it. I suck. This book may be the best encapsulation of the way I felt. I had so much to say about it. Thought it was provocative, very emotional, and also cool. Like there's just cool stuff in there. But very emotional read. One of the best female protagonists I've ever read. Cannot say enough good things about it. If you're a fantasy fan and you're watching the stream, if you could take one thing away from the stream, I would tell you to read Windhaven. Fantasy or science fiction fan, for that matter. The Deluge by Stephen Markley is a climate apocalyptic novel where climate change takes a rapid pace in changing everything in the world. It has some of the most mundane effects that you could ever imagine, like it being hot at a house party, to catastrophic failures, catastrophic events that will change the face of the earth and even the political scene all across the world. This is a very American book. It might detail some stuff going around the world, but it's very centered around America and American politics as well. If you're someone who doesn't like to read about politics, you certainly shouldn't read this book. But what I will say is I think it just absolutely takes a swing at everything and everyone, which I really appreciated, and kind of lays out a future that is very bleak, but unfortunately is almost optimistic based on, I think, what we're in now. So I think the Deluge, is it Deluge or Deluge? I'm calling it the Deluge, and that's it. Deluge, if you could put it in the post-apocalyptic, it has to be one of the heaviest hitters. I think it's a great American novel. And Stephen Markley writes dialogue and characters as good as anyone that I've ever read. Some people say that he feels kind of maybe like an ode to Stephen King, but I think that's true for some of it, but he's also vastly different. I was very high on his book, Ohio. I believe that made my top 10 books of the year 2 years ago. Mrs. Nutt. Everyone I've recommended Ohio to that has read and reported back has loved it. He has written 2 books, Deluge being his second. And it's a shame because I think he's going to be writing for television. He has Paradise, which is a show on Hulu that had a pretty stinker of a last episode, unfortunately, in season 1. Up to that point, I really enjoyed it. I hope we don't lose him to Hollywood. I hope he writes more books. But this book is massive. The scope of it's outrageous. He plays with different devices in his story and ways of writing that I think are really adventurous. So it doesn't feel just like a run-of-the-mill novel. It feels like a guy who is trying to flex entertainment, themes, and the craft. And in my opinion, nailed it. So big fan of this book. Big fan of Stephen Markley. I hope he keeps writing because I think he could be like a great American author, truly. And Who Have Never Known Men, I described earlier in the stream. And I think at this point, everyone probably knows what it's about. Let's find out who wins the science fiction book of the year. And you should, I think, be able to pick this one out if you watch my wrap-ups this year, but also my going trend of picking books that no one really reads, like book 7s in a series and such. This is the big one, the last word of the night, and it goes to The Deluge by Stephen Markley. I loved it, and it's incredible. I think this is one of those books I mentioned that it's a bazillion pages long, and I felt like I read it forever. I think it took me over a month to read it, and I never wanted it to end. The only piece of it that I didn't necessarily as enjoy is I felt like it tried to spin kind of an optimistic ending in some ways, and I just didn't feel like it was true for what was going on. But I don't fault someone for trying to find a silver lining or like a beacon of hope, possibly. And it doesn't shit on the rest of the novel and the very real problems that we have. But this book is outrageously good. And I kind of didn't want to say this when I was talking about it during the nomination section. This is my favorite post-apocalyptic, if you want to call it that. We'll call it apocalyptic. Whatever. Doesn't matter. My favorite of all time. This book would make my top 10 books ever, for sure. It might make my top 5 books ever, which might be by the way, that might be a video I make or a stream I do. I might finally just get down to business and see what I would actually put on that top books list. Cause General fiction and fantasy would be tough enough. If I just did books, whew, that'd be tough. Be really tough. I mean, I hope that there is weight to the fact that I am essentially a channel who is just constantly looking for 250-page or shorter books, and I really push those on my channel. I don't know if people have noticed this. That is kind of, if I ever had a brand, which I don't, my brand, other than I hope authenticity, would be the fact that I'm trying to find books that I don't feel like waste your time. I'm trying to find shorter books for you all to read so that you can get, a wider range of things to read, a good sampling size of different genres, but also get something out of it that's a little bit more economical with your time. I think I'm doing that in a manner that is respectable. I don't really like talking well about myself. I think I've done a decent job of doing that. My point of all that to say is this book is like 1,300 pages. I think it's actually like 1,100. So for me to give this over Windhaven or some of the other shorter books, like I hope that has some weight to it, because I'm so anti-long book right now. I would read the Deluge. I would read 10 Deluges. I really would. I think if this doesn't become like a great American novel, I would be vastly, vastly surprised. I'd be very disappointed, to be honest. So I hope that you will try it. Now, here's the thing. This is your little warning. The first chapter of this is really, really weird. Not in a fun way necessarily, but like very scientific. And you're reading like proof of concept stuff and citing sources. It's almost written like a structured, what is it? SLA? I can't remember. I haven't been in school in forever, but it almost reads like an academic paper. So this is not a book. I always say, go read the sample. Don't actually read the sample. And this is very rare of me. You got to give it some time. I know we are tired on the internet of people saying, get the book 6, just wait to change, whatever it is. And I am too, but I'm using my card for the one time this year to say, give it some time and give it a shot. If you are someone who like appreciates someone going for it and really trying to give you everything possible while flexing their writing chops, this is the guy. If you like dialogue, this is the guy. If you like insane plot twists, this is the guy. If you want characters that are memorable and very hateable, but then all of a sudden make you feel conflicted that you actually kind of feel bad for them, this is your guy. This is the book. This is the one. The one of many, or out of many that could have won this award. The Deluge. The Deluge kind of just mops the floor. I really can't tell you how awesome I think this book is, and I'll even give it a good old nut salute to tell you that the reason why this award win last is because I really wanted you to understand just how much I love this book. So, I guess a bit, you could probably guess what's going to win my top 10 books of the year. I think it'll probably be more interesting to see what gets 2 through 10. This is it. I mean, this is incredible. I probably will reread it, to be honest with you. I've been through a lot with a lot of different characters and a lot of different books. This cast gave me some of the most frustration I've ever read reading, like just being so pissed off or disgusted by actions or like just make a better decision. And they don't. But I also understand why they don't make those decisions. That's actually something I would say about Robin Hobb as well, is like, there's times where like characters make decisions and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, but when you think about the character and what they're about, you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense. This is harder to stomach because it's in our world. Makes it way harder to stomach. So tremendous. And I also like that Markley didn't pull any punches and he went into like the American political system and takes shots at pretty much everybody who has the wrong motivations for being in politics. But he also kind of shows the problem with the system. And the system is like not like NOS, like from Fast and the Furious. It's like NOS to these disasters happening all before our eyes. Almost similar to the feeling of the White Walkers coming below the wall while everyone's worrying about politics in King's Landing. It's really incredible. And also how this issue will be hijacked by people that are bad actors, regardless of whatever party they're involved with, and will use it to their own means. And like I said, the mundane parts are just as interesting to read about than the massive, epic climate disaster parts. Just how this world changing affects everyone on a certain level. And then there's just some reveals that are insane, like crazy. One of the most shocking books I've read. Okay. That's the science fiction book of the year. Let's read back through the comments and see how many people have read it. I think this book is severely underread. Mark Lee in general, severely underread. So if you're looking for like an author, this is the guy. Ohio might be an easier place to start. Ohio is about a small Ohio town, kind of like post-Iraq war and people coming back because of something bad that happened many years ago. I do think that's kind of, unfortunately, a tale as old as time, but Mark Lee writes it as true as anyone who's ever written it, and he has all those strengths about characters and dialogue that he has in The Deluge in that setting, and they're two very, very different books, but I do think he kind of captures American life for better or for worse, and I hope that you'll read Mark Lee. He's vastly underread, and it wouldn't be a book of the year if it wasn't some weird novel that not many people read. So, all right, let's see. People were picking The Deluge. Which A Song of Ice and Fire books would you recommend? I would recommend Fever Dream, Windhaven. If you're talking about George R. R. Martin books, Windhaven, Fever Dream, Sand Kings is like 60 pages and absolutely incredible. If you have not read the Dunk and Egg series, you should. It's incredible. Song for Laia. The Dream Songs collection, I'll tell you, if you're an audiobook person, you should try the Dream Songs collection by George R. R. Martin. And I'll tell you why. Because there's actually parts where George R. R. Martin reads his memoir and kind of like where he was at the time as an author and as a human being before he wrote the stories that he's chosen to read to you next. And there are proper narrators for the stories, but those little interludes by George, someone who's a huge fan of his work, was really awesome. Really, really awesome. Awesome. I used to read Tuttle's children's books to my kids. Very cool. Unfortunately, the cover of The Deluge looks too much like the cover of Infinite Jest and approaches the same length as well. I wonder how much of that was on purpose, them trying to capture the Lit Bros. Ironically, I don't know if the Lit Bros would even like Mark Lee. I don't think they would. Windhaven is great. It might be my least favorite of Gurm's Song of Ice and Fireworks. Dying of the Light is maybe my favorite, though Fever Dream is also excellent. I guess I need to reread Gurm. Yeah, I guess I didn't say The Dying of the Light. I really enjoyed. Also like Night Flyers quite a bit. I really haven't read a story from Gurm that I haven't liked. I did put down the Armageddon Rag, but not because I wasn't enjoying it. I actually was liking it. I kind of felt like I had a second head because everyone around me seemingly wasn't enjoying it. But I ended up putting it down just because it was the wrong time and I had a lot of stuff going on. I'll get back to it at some point. So, Windhaven's cover is giving Silverwing by Kenneth Opal, though I doubt there are bats. It does have that same vibe. So, are the Windhaven novellas a sequence of stories or more 3 separate stories in the same world? They are like chronological, but they are like 3 novellas that kind of flow into each other. And there's some time passage and stuff. It reads like a story. Like you don't have to worry about that if you're like, and you'll want to read all of them at once, in my opinion. So, Dylan's Book Nook says Windhaven is great. It might be my lead. Oh no, I'm sorry, I already read that. I apologize. Science fiction book of the year next year. White Wing, Dark Star, sobs. That would probably be the most egregious book of the year. I don't know. Book 7, and then like what was it? 7 and an 8 book series. No, book 6 in a 7 book series by R. Scott Baker that no one's read. That was pretty bad. That was pretty bad of me to do, to be honest. The winner is Cloud Atlas. Timothy Cavendish couldn't be here to accept tonight, but he sends his regards and plea for help. Oh man, Cloud Atlas is so good. Optimistic. We'll see about that. Deluge. I'll never say it right. Evie said my science fiction fantasy book of the year is A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. That's all. I don't need to read the other ones, Evie. Amanda's reading Ohio right now and loving it. Deluge is so good. That makes me really happy. My science fiction fantasy book of the year is The Heroes. Could be my favorite Abercrombie. So good. My science fiction fantasy book of the year from Amanda, our friend at Shelf Fun Stable, says Kushiel's Mercy. I've been told that there's less Norse stuff in the sequels. Therefore, I will continue that because Jacqueline Carey's writing is pretty fantastic, in my opinion. Does Deluge read super long? I've been avoiding it for the length. I loved Ohio. No. You will know that you're reading it for a long time, but I wanted to pick it up all the time, and I loved every time I picked it up. That's as good as it gets. There's so many books out there that either I really want to pick it up, and it's just never reaching the heights I want to, or I never want to pick it up, and then I pick it up, and it's really good. This didn't have either problem. It was amazing. Mervyn Peak, Titus Grown. Very cool. Scott said, I'm definitely going to try Windhaven now. I own it on my Kindle. Science fiction fantasy book of the year overall was Shadows Upon Time by Rockio. I'm an unashamed fanboy and always will be. Hell yeah. The easiest call of all time. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you should try. Though, Angela, I wonder if you would enjoy The Deluge more. You might. It's hard to say. I think both books are 5 stars. I think they're both incredible. I just think The Deluge is way more ambitious and for me lands everything it tries to do. So Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison. I'm going to reread this book at some point. That feeling when you go to put the book on hold and realize it's already in your library holds because Jimmy's previous review. Mine was Hyperion. Keep it on the down low though. Saving it for later. You got it, man. David from Lost Beyond the Wall, thank you very much for the 5 spots. Very, very kind of you. Have to drop after the reveal, but thanks for changing my life this year, Jimmy and company. Also, shout out to my science fiction fantasy winner, Assassin's Apprentice. Well, I, of course, love Assassin's Apprentice. And David, I also love that you've become a part of the community. David has been welcomed with open arms into the Patreon community. And I would say has been a pretty great addition. Goofy kid. I like it. I like them. Shorter books waste my time because I'm less likely to enjoy them. Hey, there's plenty of chunkers out there for you. No problems. Jimmy, we all know you like books that double as self-defense weapons. I do like Tab Williams a lot. The first chapter of The Deluge is incredible. I was so in. So Dylan, I'm with you. I was like, what am I reading? But I just know there's going to be a lot of people read that first chapter and go, this is 1, boring, and 2, what is going on? And it's so ridiculous that it's the opening chapter of the book, just because of like where the story goes and how many other things happen and the way he writes changes so much. I think it does set like a precedent to be like, buckle up, right? It does do that. And for that, I love it. And I did find it very interesting. So adding Deluge to the list, Jimmy, have you read Station 11? I have. Wonderful book. Also, great television show. Really, really good. One of the more underrated HBO shows. And David Cross is in it. And I love David Cross. Oh no, T Baggins says this is another $15 ebook. You know, they know I'm going to pick it and they jack it up. It's a shame. A book that is completely different, but also strangely similar to The Deluge is Kim Stanley Robinson's The Ministry for the Future. I think I have that book. I always get that book mixed up with How You Lose the Time More for some weird reason. I've never read any Kim Stanley Robinson, and I've always thought about reading The Red Mars, but maybe this is a better place to start. Is that a standalone, Dylan? You bought The Deluge too? All right. Simon said, I'm going to read Jimmy's book of the year no matter what. Cloud Atlas last year blew me away. Never go against the Nuttys. Well, I'm glad. I had a lot of people report back not so keen on Cloud Atlas or David Mitchell. And I always just feel bad about it. Just ordered The Deluge. It's on sale on Book Outlet if anyone's interested. There. Spread the word. Anathem was the most massive, enjoyable, but the dispossessed best science fiction fantasy I read this year. Anathem is one that I put down because of the clock section, but I will read the rest of that book. I am determined to read that book. It's too much of a good premise to not. Tony, if you love characters that annoy or frustrate you, you would love The Deluge because, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Everyone's saying that word. I always get nervous when this happens. Ugh. I hope you all like it. If you don't like it, just tell me. I'll send you a gift card or something. I'm not even kidding. I probably would. I really got to get to Anathem one of these days. I've had it on my shelf for years now. Me too, and I got to give it a better chance. You're making The Deluge sound amazing, but I don't know if I can add an 800-page book. Yeah, and by the way, it's 800 pages, but it's longer than that. It's like one of those ones that probably should actually be like 1,000 pages, but the font is a little bigger. Actually, I don't think the font's big. I think it's small and it's 800 pages, I think. Next year on Jimmy's Retrospect, it was just really meh. How many books do you think you have read in your life? If you count like childhood and stuff, like not since being back on you, probably somewhere between 700 to 1,000, I would say. So honestly, not that well read. I'm not going to pretend like, oh, I'm being humble like that. It's a lot of books, but there are people in my life who have read thousands of books, especially older folks who just by sheer time have had more opportunity than me. But I would say somewhere around there. And that's a big range, but honestly, I'm just not really sure. Walking around Barnes & Noble right now and just picked up The Deluge. Scott, I think if you could get to the academic paper part, which honestly you might love, I think you would enjoy it. It's definitely in that like King McCammon American novel feel with a lot of stuff that you're not going to get anywhere else. Terrestrial History is Rebecca Nicole's book of the year overall. Also Apocalyptic Crisis book, but much shorter. Mrs. Nuts, make sure I look that up, please. Piranesi, Spear Cuts Through Water. Very cool. The length is terrifying. I agree with you. Angela's science fiction fantasy book of the year was easily the finale to the Vorkosigan saga by Bejoled. Such a great coda to an amazing series. Yeah, that's pretty high on the list. I think it's just because there's so many of them that I've been apprehensive just because series are intimidating to me at this point. But I want to read more Bejoled. I'll probably read Paladin of Souls before I do those. Windhaven would be my top 5 for sure. Absolutely. It's amazing. My science fiction book of the year, Fool's Errand. I would not have expected that. But I also love that book a lot. Mine is Dragon Prince by Melanie Ron. I think I remember you telling me about this in the chat one night, and I was like, that sounds really good. Also, like Melanie Ron is just not someone that's been on my radar, so that's kind of cool. Karsa, House of Chains, of course. Between Two Fires. It's a book I've had for a long time. I like long books if I'm into the book. So anyone thinking about writing a long book ought to make sure it's good. I love Cloud Atlas. Dan, I love you. It's fantastic. The Ministry for the Future is a standalone. Also quite technical in a fashion similar to the Deluge's first chapter. Okay, very cool. Kim Stanley Robinson's 2312 is a standalone, and I feel like it would be very up your alley with how deep it goes into the minutia of how actually living in the future would be. The prologue is incredible. Okay, sold. Is there a book you enjoyed despite Alan? Any book by a woman because he hates women. That would be my pick, I think. As far as books, I'm kidding, by the way. As far as books that no one knows winning science fiction fantasy book of the year, my favorite this year is Gnomon by Nick Harkaway. I also read Gnomon, and I'm not sure I understood anything in it, but I could tell something really cool was going on. I actually really wanted to read his Titanium Noir book. I thought that sounded really cool. Making 2026 my year of big books. I have so many I've been putting off forever. And that the sad thing is that if I had to make a list of anticipated reads, unfortunately, the majority of the list are paid like books like Lonesome Dove, Anathema, like all these just massive books. But, you know, I can't go against the brand, can I? What was the Patreon read of the year? Was The Deluge a Patreon pick? I don't think it was. That's really hard for me to say, Zeely. Off the top of my head, I think Blue Book of Nebo, or I Who Have Never Known Men. Was Windhaven also? I can't remember. I don't think it was. I Who Have Never Known Men. That would probably be it. It's either that or Blue Book of Nebo, I think. Red Rabbit was also, dude, I had a lot of good patron picks. There was a couple of real bad experiences for me, unfortunately, and I'm waiting for that next hitter to come around. Michael R. Fletcher was not it. Read this comment if you want me to spoil you when I finish Anathema. No, please don't. Yeah, I saw that Between Two Fires is re-releasing in March. Are there any edits to it, or is it just a re-release through traditionally published? I'm kind of curious. Science fiction book of the year for me was Wind Shins by Charles Day Lint, tied with The Dark Tower. I thought when I first read this, Duffy, I thought that it said it tied into The Dark Tower. And I was like, well, I'm reading that immediately. But I was mistaken, unfortunately. I really hope you fit Mystic River in sometime next year. It's a Jimmy book. Dennis Lehane's getting read at some point. Whether it's that or not, he's getting read for sure. Picking up Paladin of Souls once this stream ends. Are you really? I got 2 things going on right now, so I don't think I'm going to be able to join you, unfortunately. Though the Dragon Prince series is... okay. We got some Gnomon love. I love that. Crypt of the Moon Spider. I like that, too. I feel like my literary journey is a constant effort to catch up with nutty winners, but always failing. You're not failing as long as you're reading, dude. That's all that matters. And Jose and everyone, the fact that any of you like listen to me and consider to read things I enjoy is shocking, but also I do appreciate it. I'd like to think that this community is very open-minded because of how many times I have to preface things with, now, hold on now. Think about what you're doing now. You don't want to read this book, even though I love it. So I hope that maybe with some of the caution that I put with books that I hope I'm matching them to your taste, I guess, is my ultimate goal in this. So I want to kind of talk about the year a little bit before we go. And I don't know how long I'm going to monologue about this. Actually, I kept it at 2 hours. It's pretty good. So for me this year, when I was kind of looking through this list, and I think you might be able to tell as you go through the awards and looking at the nominees, what I realized is that I really tried to read a lot of different authors outside of genre. And when it came to fantasy, the majority of the fantasy that I read this year were by authors that I have already read. So I think I did, and I don't really set a lot of reading goals. I'm going to read this much from this, but I have like general ideas of like, hey, maybe keep this in the back of your mind while you're picking books. And one area I really did not do great in that I've done better in past years, I think I did it really well 2 years ago, was reading more fantasy books that are prior to like 1980, 1990. I could go on and on about all the ones that I've read. I've read some pre-Tolkien stuff. I've read stuff from the 60s, 70s. I even tried to read Stephen Donaldson, which I did not enjoy, unfortunately. But even Glenn Cook, Michael Moorcock, Elric is a series I need to continue. I really loved Elric in the World and Michael Moorcock's writing. And then all the other stuff, Hawkwood or whatever. I know someone's going to kill me for forgetting it, but there's a lot of like Michael Moorcock I want to read, but there's also other stuff out there that I certainly should give a shot to, and older stuff. So this year I did not do a great job of reading a lot of older stuff. I did read some stuff from Gurm, obviously wrote way back when in the 70s when he was really just a science fiction horror short story writer, just winning Hugos here and there. So I would like to do a better job of that next year. I read the majority of my reads were fantasy this year. I don't have a problem with that. I don't really care about what genre I'm reading, but when I am reading fantasy outside of new releases, I would also like to, chip at that backlog and maybe find some forgotten stuff. Like I did with Julian May. That was a lot of fun. So there's a ton of stuff out there still in fantasy that I want to read, but for me, older stuff would be cool. I read a lot of science fiction this year, and I found a lot of stuff that I really love. I have found that in science fiction, I'm almost a little bit more sure of what I want out of science fiction than maybe any other genre. I really like First Contact. I like anything that ties into apocalypse or post-apocalyptic. Post-apocalyptic probably being my favorite like subgenre or even like type of story ever. Though I end up hating a lot of apocalyptic stories and movies. So First Contact, I think I'm a big fan of like conceptual sci-fi. I don't know if that's the right word, but odd scenarios in the not so far future. And I'll just give you the obvious example that is probably the best example of it in recent memory in any form of media, which would be Severance. Pluribus on Apple TV. I think that's how you say it. I can't remember. Those type of shows where it's something like not too far in the future or even present day, and it like changes everything. And Severance is just amazing because of a lot of the mysteries and stuff that go into it. And I would like to find more books like that. I'm currently reading The Fifth Head of Cerberus, I don't know, by Gene Wolfe, and really enjoying it. And it is kind of what I'm talking about. Like, it is certainly in the same vein as that. So tons of old sci-fi to still read through, but those are the stories I really want out of sci-fi, and more stories like that is probably what I would like to focus on. But I was happy with how much sci-fi I read this year. I'll be finishing up The Final Architecture in 2026 by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which will be good. And then whatever pulls me in a direction is where I will be going. It's going to be a pretty free-flowing year, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But I definitely explored more outside of fantasy. Not just because I'm reading outside of fantasy. I mean, I've been doing that for years at this point, but I just tried a lot of new authors. I would like to get back to some of the ones that I really enjoyed and maybe read some stuff from authors in fantasy. I want to flip it a little bit. I need to get back to Barbara Kingsolver. I need to finish off David Mitchell and Ishiguro. Like these authors that I really love, I would like to get to. I would love to finally finish Anna Karenina. That would be sick, wouldn't it? Would love to read War and Peace. These are massive books. I don't know when that will actually happen. I would like to feature more short stories in the coming year. I think that would be pretty nifty as well. Whether I will or not, we'll have to kind of wait and see. So to me, very successful year. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, very, very inconsistent year. When I looked back, though, the things that had to fit into the categories, they were tight races. I was happy about it. I actually felt really positive about my reading year after feeling a bit negative whenever I was kind of closing out. And I think a lot of it had to do with just a lot of books in this final quarter just didn't work for me. Some were Patreon picks, some were things I kind of looked forward to, and they just weren't there. But overall, it was awesome. And I did something this year that I really don't do often. And I think that this was actually the case in my community. I know my friend Ben felt this way. I read a lot of new releases this year in general. I have been trending upward for probably the last 2 or 3 years of reading more, but we're talking about like, I don't think I've ever read more than like 2, maybe 3 new releases in a year. This year, I think I read like 7, 8. And there's a large backlog of books that I want to get to, but I'm not going to lie to you. It's kind of fun to be part of the conversation when it first happens. It's interesting because one, there feels like there's a buzz. That's always a good time. When people are excited to talk about something, it makes you excited to talk about something, whether the experience you had was good or bad. But on top of that, it's kind of fun to watch the opinions kind of shift. A good example of this is James by Percival Everett. Whenever I read it, and I mean, obviously I loved it. One of my fiction book of the year. Everyone I knew loved it. I have seen a lot more, mid to negative reviews, and I'm not mad at it. I think it's great. But you see it, the more steam a book gets, more people read it, the more different tastes come into play. And then you see it start to morph and to change and to whatever. And I think that that's actually a lot of fun. And it makes you kind of consider like, well, how much of this was me being excited to read it? I don't think that we can totally disqualify people who read new release just because they're excited. I think that would be very silly, but we're all human and have our biases and whatnot. But just a really big new release year. There was also a lot of slammers for fantasy releases. I mean, the James Islington book that came out, Steven Erikson book that came out. There is a bunch of others I'm forgetting, of course. I'm just kind of listing off what was on the stream tonight, but there was a lot of other ones. And I think there's a lot of stuff to look forward to. I think Scott Lynch is right on the cusp of getting more active. Daniel Abraham is going to be releasing the second book, and second book in the Mercy of God series, which is another one I really need to read. And then he's going to finish off Kithamar, which is, another series I need to read. That's all I got to read to be like completely caught up on Daniel Abraham stuff. So I'm feeling good rolling into the new year. A little bit of a slow reading month. Like I'm only probably going to wrap up 2 or 3 books next week, which is why I don't mind just doing it the following week of this. And it'll be a lot of fun. I got some series I would like to start. Specifically, I would say Too Like the Lightning by Ada Palmer is probably the one that's been at the forefront of my mind for a while. Can someone please in the chat remind me of what the hell Ada Palmer series is called? Why can I not remember? My memory's going bad, going very, very bad. I guess we could talk a little bit about personal stuff for the year. I had a pretty rough beginning of the year, and this is all, this is just me, and there are people who have way harder things to go through. But the first half of the year was really stressful, trying to survive layoffs. Oh, Terra Ignota. That is the Ada Palmer series. That is definitely at the forefront of my mind. But it was really rough, and it made a lot of things really hard to enjoy this year. And there were times where getting on camera, going live, and just being active and stuff was really difficult. And I think, maybe you could notice, maybe you couldn't, I don't know. But the grace and the patience that people have shown me, while probably not being the most enjoyable person to talk to this year, it means the world to me. And I try to always keep that in mind when I'm interacting with people. And I think that's probably my message, is just like, let's offer each other grace and patience, and try to see the best in their intentions and not always the worst. Because I think, unfortunately, online, it is the culture of taking everything in the worst light possible. And it's something that I'm trying to be better at. In the second half of the year, I got to switch jobs into something seemingly more stable. Maybe not as much as I actually had hoped, but we can always, we can move on. We can do whatever. I'm very happy with my current spot, but I just feel like I can never really trust anything to be stable ever again at this point in my life, which is a little bit tough. I've been pretty open with my mental health struggles on the channel. And I always knew like I had depression, and it's, something I battled pretty much my entire life. But this year I was also diagnosed with type 2 bipolar disorder, which makes a lot of sense. For me. And being able to put like a name to something, and like understanding that you're not the only person, like, you're not crazy, I guess, or I guess some people would probably say I'm crazy, but putting like a label on it, knowing that there's something that can like help you and whatnot. And I've basically been put on a track where I can feel better. And like there actually is treatment and things you can do. Like you don't have to live like that. And it's just really freeing. It's really freeing to know that that you don't have to live like that. You don't have to wallow in like self-loathing and hatred, and you're not the only person that feels like that. And I've always been apprehensive to like seek that help and stuff, because I think I always was very scared that there was no help, like going out and seeking it and then coming back and being like, yeah, there actually aren't any answers. Like that is terrifying. And it took a lot for me to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together and think like I might be struggling from this thing. And I also, by the way, I completely misunderstood the different types of bipolar disorder and what it is. A lot of people think it's just like you're super happy and then super mad, and that's not actually what it is at all. And I won't go into all of it, but it's a lot more than that. And it has wrecked a lot of opportunity for me and like things I would like to accomplish. I mean, how many times you guys have heard me talk about on this channel about like things I get excited about that I want to do. And, I'm here talking to you, and I'm getting the feedback from the chat, I'm commenting, and I'm in the moment, and I'm so happy, and I feel really good. And then as soon as the camera goes off and I go back and being in my own head, I doubt everything I could ever do. And I also just feel like I can't do anything. And then a lot of those projects and thoughts, like they never come to be because of my own like views of myself. And ironically, this is maybe a little bit funny, so we can get off this super downer of a segment, is I actually started to piece it together because of golf. I would go golf, and I'm very supportive of people. Like if I get paired with strangers, I become the biggest fan of them. Like I want them to have a good day. And so I try to do that and support them, but I'm very hard on myself. And I started having people say like, dude, like at the end of rounds, like strangers being like, hey man, like you were amazing to play with, but you really need to be kinder to yourself. Cause I would like, I'm yelling things when I hit bad shots, like not at anyone else, but at myself. And I thought it was normal. Turns out, because everyone, shit, what a bad shot, you idiot, whatever. But like, I would like lash myself vocally. And I had a lot of strangers with good hearts being like, hey, maybe you should be nice to yourself. And I'm like, man, that is, that's a wake-up call. So, it's something as silly as that kind of led me down a path, and started to realize that like the longer you live with depression, actually, the more likely you are to kind of develop, like it's like bipolar disorder that is kind of leading into like or depression leads into it, because your brain's really good at adapting, and your brain will essentially make you survive if you're lucky enough, depending on what you're going through. But like for me, it was like my mood was always like a 0 to 6. Like I never got happier than a 6. I can count on like one hand how many times I've been really elated in my adult life. And now with the treatment I have, I'm more of between like a 3 to a 7. Like I'm not a numb zombie, clearly. All that, I guess all I'm just trying to say is like, all I'm trying to say is this whole thing is difficult. I think reading helps me a lot. I think it has helped me immeasurably to put myself in different people's shoes. I think part of the reason why that works so well is that I read a lot of different stuff from a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds. And I don't think anyone has to do anything. I don't think there's any required reading. Like I don't believe in any of that garbage, but I am thankful that my palette is so large, because I think it has really led to a lot more of like self-discovery and just being able to understand people. Because I think I have just always struggled to understand people. I just have. So, I don't know if anyone else out there, I mean, obviously everyone's going through something and it's all relative and whatever, but if you've ever been like really afraid to like seek help or treatment and the stigmas that are around that, I would really implore you to take that step and be bold and be brave. And I'm telling you, like, it's not just a figure of my imagination. Like obviously Kelsey's seen Mrs. Nuts has seen a big difference, but I talked to my friend Alan on a voice message, and he did not know that I had started to kind of address the situation. Didn't even know about it. And he's like, man, you sound like lighter. Like you sound good. And I've had like 10 other people tell me that without knowing anything's changed. So it's not just a placebo or in my head. It is like an actual observable change. It's really cool. It's really, really cool. So let's go through the chat. I'm sure this is going to make me cry. I don't know why I just did all that. I don't know why I did that. Why did I do that at the end of a book awards? Don't timestamp this and put "don't watch." That's what we will do. Too Like the Lightning is one of the best titles ever. I agree with that. For sure. Too Like the Lightning is very Gene Wolfe inspired. Yeah, I've heard that like in the writing style and stuff, but like it's a very different story than New Sun, which I like that. I think that's cool. Ben said, I love you very much, man. One of the best humans I've had the privilege of knowing. I don't know if I'm one of the best, but we certainly mesh well together, I would say. Thank you for sharing yourself. How's guitar practice coming along? You know what the weird thing is, Colton? I keep thinking if I just buy one more guitar, I'll finally get better. I've only been playing for like 5 weeks. I can do like Enter Sandman's intro now. That's pretty cool. Guitar is awesome. It is a non-competitive hobby, much like this in many respects, but with way less pressure. I can just pick up my guitar and noodle around and feel something. And there's no pace that I have to keep. There's no one I have to compare myself to. That would be silly. It's just different than anything I've ever really done. And I'm really loving it. So Jenna Rose Reed said, trust me, you're an enjoyable person to talk to, even if you mirror what I also felt a lot this year. Honestly, it was nice to see someone else worrying, odd as it sounds. Yeah, there's a certain like bond or cathartic feeling of that. I guess that's what I'm trying to offer with something like that. Thank you, guys. I'm not gonna be able to read all these. It would feel weird to me to read a bunch of like, you're the man. So I see it and I appreciate it. Booknick says, tech world is so bad right now. I graduated my IT degree this year and there's nothing, at least nothing that allowed me to feed. Yeah. Me and the kids. Yeah, dude. I think being a grad going into pretty much any computer field right now is treacherous. I do think it will get better. How long? I don't know, but it will get better. I think. Colton says, Jimmy, you're one of my favorite humans. Well, I am very grateful for that. Diagnosis is never fixed, but knowing is a weirdly helpful thing. Derry, I would even say knowing is almost mandatory, because if you don't know, you can't do anything about it. I'm just reading through these comments, trying not to lose it. I'm sorry for the awkward silence. I just don't. Kev with the super chat. Thanks for the 10 spot. Love you, brother. Thanks for building this community and changing mine and some other people's lives. Thanks for changing mine, man. You didn't have to give me $10 to say that. Thank you all. That's all I can say is just thanks. Knowing something is wrong, but not knowing what it is puts incredible strain on your mind. Glad that you got that understanding and help. Yeah, me too. Thank you. You aren't broken. You were never broken. You needed different tools to operate daily. That's something should go on a billboard. For real. Yeah, and you know, sharing this is partly cathartic for me, but I just know there's stigma and you know, there's reasons for that, but we have to keep in mind that there's help, right? And we should explore those options and just be brave enough to have some trial and error, and it can change your life. Like my life has literally been changed over the last 2.5 months. Like my life is different. I am a different person. I am experiencing life differently. And my only regret now is just like, why did I wait so long? I guess it's because I just didn't have the pieces together, but love you, Mrs. Nuts. You're thankful for me and my strength. I don't think I would be here without you. So could you say, I remember having that feeling when I learned I had autism. It's incredibly freeing. It is. It is. You're not alone, Jimmy. I have a close family with bipolar. Yeah, I guess if I had any kind of mission now, I would like I had the wrong impression of what bipolar disorder was. And like I thought it was just one thing, you know. So borderline personality disorder a while ago, I can relate a lot. It's so hard for me just to be myself. Well, just always know that yourself is enough, you know? Yeah. Folks, these comments really mean the world to me. Mrs. Nutt said it's been a wild ride in 2025. Excited to see where we go in 2026. So I will try to be kinder to myself. I'm seeing a lot of that here in the chat. This is like not a good way of doing a book live stream though. Like, so if you guys are going to make a channel, don't follow me. Like, don't do what I've done, because it's not, if you want to grow, it's not conducive to growth, I would say. And that's fine. I know that, but I'm just saying it's laughable how bad I am at YouTube. I'm talking bad about myself again. The best guitar is always your next. That's what everyone keeps telling me. Does anybody have, before we go, does anyone have any bookish goals for 2026? Mine is to get more ebook reading and doing that through Libby or the library. I mean, I do that anyways, but I think I'm going to actively like go and pay for some other library cards in the area. I've lost a lot of those because after COVID, they like stopped letting you do digital ones. Like that was honestly one of the benefits of COVID, is like you could go to any library online. It was amazing. I wasn't paying for books. It was great. And I was supporting libraries where I could. So I think that's one of my goals. I think. I would love to hear y'all's 2026 goals. Book review and a therapy session seems like a winning combo to me. Reading is therapeutic. That's fair. That is fair. Yeah, bipolar 2 is a relatively new recognized thing. My niece does as well. The treatment is very effective. Yeah, but this is a really cute community, so you've actually done a really great job. Yeah, this was the goal. I mean, that is one important thing for any of you that are out there that think about doing YouTube, is like, just like figure out how you want to do it. And you don't even have to know, but once you do it, just keep in mind of like why you started. And the reason why I started was to connect with people. Of course, I wanted to, have 10,000 subs one day. That was like a big thing for me. But at the end of the day, this is a drop in a pond. and one day it'll, we'll probably lose every YouTube video that was ever made, and this won't exist. But it does now, and it helps me connect with people, which I love. My bookish goal is to post at least one video per month. I'm trying to get myself to film just one this year. My rating plans for 2026. The hardest part's starting back again. And Scott, I would love for you to do that. Selfishly, I would love that. I saw Kev somewhere said that he wants to read more books physically. The second half of this year, I really got more back on the train of physically. Sometimes the audiobook's great, but there's something about the solitude of sitting down with a book. Like, I almost always get more out of it, I feel. I know that's not the case for everyone, but it is for me. I just created a reading spreadsheet for the first time for 2026. Kind of proud and ashamed at the same time. I kind of want to come a couple of the statistics. I think I'm going to be getting off Goodreads in the new year. I think I'm just going to go to a spreadsheet that I can track myself. I think that would be really good for me. My bookish goals: review more than half of the books I read and read more books by authors I love. Finish series. Damn it. All of those apply to me as well. Read books I own. Yes. I want to read more female authors, stop hating on women. Anitha, you should do that. That would be very good for you. I have no goals. I shall therefore not fail. Wise words. Translated works. There's a lot of really good stuff in here. Well, let's go into it. I'm not a huge resolutions person, but I do think that it's okay to have some. I don't like to get bogged down because then I get disappointed in myself. Malazan, and continue with Robin Hobb. Jimmy, I got a Kobo in case you don't have one. I have a Libra color with the page turning buttons. I love it. I have a Oasis 2 with buttons. I'm a big button guy, and it's pretty great. Though I'd love to get off the DRM, but it's kind of hard to avoid it at this point. My bookish goals are write 2 more of them. Hell yeah. You could do it, Joe. People seem to love your stuff. They really do. Oh, read more nonfiction. Perhaps. Hey, Dylan, make those videos, boo. Make those I almost called you boo. I said booed. That's close to boo. It would have been bad either way, but booed translates to dude if you were curious. Okay, I'm done. That's 2025. There's your awards. That's the Nutties. There's a life update. There it all is out there in the open. And I love you all very much. I am very, very, very blessed or lucky, whatever it is, to have this community. And I hope that you guys will keep tuning in for, many more months or years or whatever, however long this thing happens. Who knows? Maybe this is it. I don't know. That'd be disappointing. Top 10 books coming out the first week of January. Next week, I'll be wrapping up the month of December. Pretty short month. It'll be fun, but we're going to be doing the Patreon pick next week. I know you guys love it. Please, for the love of God, can we get a good Patreon pick? We're in a bit of a drought. Oh, well, there's been some okay stuff. I'm looking for like a 5-star slammer out of you guys. So let's get it. I hope you all have a wonderful new year. Hope you had good holidays. Hope you're safe, healthy, all that good stuff. You can like the stream if you want or whatever that is. And as a Patreon description is optional, but always appreciated. And until we see you next time, be good, be safe, and remember to always keep turning the page.